Konnichiwa, Mina-san. Welcome to another special episode of Backlog Brain Rot. We're doing a long talk this week. We haven't done this one in a while, so I've got three esteemed guests joining me for this one. First of all, we have the duo of Passive Pixels co-host here. We got Torgal, aka Addi, returning once again,
Hello.
and of course Frog as well.
Hello. It feels weird being referred to as the Passive Pixels co-host since I've listened to that show for so long, but here I am.
And then joining us for it's been a very long time, so it's good to have
Over
him back.
6 months, I think.
Yep. We've got Connor back with us.
Yes, the prodigal son has returned for a brief outing.
The rumors of a messy breakup were not true. See, he's here.
Mhm.
Don't believe the rumors.
Connor prophesied pretty much that I would really like this game back when he played it last year, and he ended up being right. So I definitely wanted to bring him back for this special episode, which is about Final Fantasy 16, a game that pretty much I think everybody just loves. Like, I haven't really heard anybody complain or say anything bad about the game. Have any of you?
Unless
No,
their name
never.
is Ed.
Yeah, never, never. No, it's
Yeah.
not like there's daily, rebirth versus 16 wars. Never.
Well, it was the Backlog Brain Rot Game of the Year, so I think
It's
It
true.
was.
2023 backlog brain
says a
rot
lot.
game of the year. Yep.
It was indeed. I was not happy with the decision at the time, but that's mainly because I didn't play it. I still would give the edge, obviously, to Baldur's Gate 3, but this game does deserve to be a GOTY pick because it's
Yeah.
that good.
It has
all
the
we can
bigger
ask for.
heart.
All we can ask for.
So yeah, I figured before we get started, I figured we could give a brief history of the Final Fantasy series of how much we played or how we got into it. Now the games aren't really connected, so you don't really have to be too like go back too far in the past to be like I need to play all these before 16. But most of them are pretty good games. So Connor, why don't you start with what your history with Final Fantasy is?
This is actually one of the first. Well, it's the first JRPG series I played, as many people can say. But I was like, it was one of the first games I remember playing was Final Fantasy 9 on the PlayStation 1 back in the day. My dad got it because he heard it was good, and so I was sitting there in like his lap, pretending to play along because that one had a weird multiplayer mode, which
Oh
most
yeah.
people don't know, where you could have in combat certain characters controlled by the other controller. Completely useless, but actually that was the active time battle system, so it wasn't completely useless because then you could have someone else dealing with the other characters. Although I still think it made you do them one at a time, so never mind. Back to useless. Um, so yeah, we played that, and I was fascinated. I didn't really do much of the playing, but eventually my dad was like, "Okay, for a gift, you can pick out any game in the GameStop to play." And so I saw Final Fantasy VII, and I was just like, "I want this one." And he's like, "Are you sure? I've heard Final Fantasy VIII is better." And I'm like, "No, this one."
I'm glad your dad listened to you.
Absolute insane dad, but
Well, he was just going off what he'd seen on forums. He was already kind of like not really that into the series by that point, but I was really into it, and he liked that. So, yeah, Seven was phenomenal. Uh, Shaped my lingering trauma over the love interest dying at the end of the story, and then yeah, we got 10 later down the line, and that one was pretty good. Never finished any of these, by the way, until I was in high school. And then I went back on my PS1 classics for the PSP and finally finished 7. Got to the last boss at 9. 10, I just finally finished a couple of years ago. But from that point on, after 10, it was kind of like didn't really play any of them until I kind of tried uh, 13 a little bit back in 2017. Got pretty far into it, and the Lightning Returns skipped 2 because that one sounded like Pokemon to me, and I was just like, not right now. Little did I know the music in that one is immaculate, so now I have to go back and play that. And yeah, 15 was interesting. and that was like my first time like really getting back into Final Fantasy after a while, and I was like, oh, this is weird. I don't know what this series is trying to do at this point, but I'm kind of
Yeah.
jiving with it. Now here are we with 16, and I think it's immaculate.
Nice. What about you, Frog?
I am a bit of a Final Fantasy baby. I have not played most of the games actually. Uh, I'm a big Final Fantasy X guy though. That game rocks, and I just love everything about it. Except the dodging the lightning bolts thing. That is really bad.
Oh
and
yeah,
I'm
they
pretty
should
sure.
probably be punished for that in like a court of law. But uh, I honestly don't. I own most of the Final Fantasy games. It's really weird. I own most of them, but I haven't played most of them also. So I'm just really like, I put them on the shelf and then I just stare at them. So I need to like actually play them. Like I
Isn't
have
that
the
what gaming is?
That is what gaming is.
You
That's
don't
What
true.
my
play the
Steam
games.
library is.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't play them.
I have the pixel remasters, so I don't have any excuse. I could just start with one and go up from there. So that's my plan. But I mostly played 10, World of Final Fantasy, which is peak, and 16, and I dabbled. I played like half of 7, and 7 remake. That's about it.
Okay, so you definitely are the, I would say, least experienced one, like you said. Addy, I know you've been like going through the older ones, so you've been playing a lot of them.
Well, yeah. So, like, kind of in a similar vein to Connor, Final Fantasy VII is just a pivotal childhood game for me. I still remember, waking up late at night while staying at my dad's house and sneaking up and playing Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy VII. Those were the two games I would sneak up and play, and just that opening bit. And I didn't know what the fuck to do. I was lost and confused, obviously, but you still had a good time with it. After that, I did end up playing Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, which I did not like at all, and I will revisit at some point, and 9, which I adore. And that was really it for a long time. Like, I didn't really touch. In fact, I really just didn't play any JRPGs at all for an incredible amount of time. I did play Final Fantasy 15 for a bit and dropped it. I was enjoying it though, so it's another one I'm going to revisit. And then obviously 16 happened. I wasn't even going to get 16, but it was gifted to me by a mysterious person. I still don't know who it is, but they gifted it to me. And yeah, it ended up becoming one of my favorite games of all time. So that made me double back and kind of go through all of these older Final Fantasy games and just do a replay of everything that I had touched before too. So I've been doing all the pixel remasters basically in order. And yeah, I went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm currently playing 6. So it's been an interesting ride so far. And like you said, mostly good, honestly. Even the pixel remasters, like I was expecting, 1 and 2, and 2 is a little rough, but especially 1 and 3 and stuff like that to be rougher. But honestly, I've enjoyed them. The boosts help and stuff like that, make the grind tolerable and stuff like that. But yeah, they're good games. They're really good games.
I have this inkling that there's some secret gift you were given that I'm in on, but I don't at this point remember who gave it to you or what it was.
I
Yeah,
think I knew who it was, but it's been so long that I genuinely forgot.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. All I know is Ed that day DM'd me and was like, by the way, he said, this isn't me. I didn't do this. Somebody did this. But go check
Oh,
it
I
out.
remember this now.
I remember who it is now.
Yeah, go check. How the fuck does everyone know? Anyways,
I don't
We
know.
were all told not to do it.
So he's like, go check your mailbox, and I was like, all right. So I go check my mailbox, and sure enough, it was there. It was very nice, whoever did it, and they sent me the fucking steelbook too, like the actual deluxe edition. Like,
Oh, you know what? I
they-
do remember this now.
it was literally everyone but me.
Yeah.
Well, he
but-
had to make sure that none of us were doing the same
Yeah.
thing, you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
No,
fair
what
enough.
happened was there was a certain point when you were at the GameStop and you were like tempted to buy
Yeah.
it.
Oh.
and then
Yeah,
everyone was
that-
freaking out. I was
yeah.
like, oh, please.
That's right. He had to make sure that we all didn't spite you into buying it.
Yeah, that's funny. I was tempted, honestly. But I didn't do it, and yeah. But yeah, no, like bless whoever did that, because absolutely, like it's so funny too, because we'll talk about it obviously in a bit. But there was a demo beforehand, and if I had played that demo, like I would have absolutely caved so hard. But I didn't even play the demo, so I was like really, really blind on it. But Yeah, like I was close to caving because I was like really tempted, but I didn't, and I guess it's a good thing I didn't because yeah, I got it sent me, which was very nice whoever did that, and it was one of the biggest payoffs because yeah, like I said, I adore the game, so it was definitely money well spent because I like it a lot.
Yeah, so for me, I've had quite a rocky history with Final Fantasy. So randomly enough, I started my first Final Fantasy games I played were on the DS. And it was Final Fantasy 3, like the original 3, not 6. That was also called 3 in the US, but the original 3, which I surprisingly like played that a ton, even though if you guys have played 3, you can attest it's not the best Final Fantasy by any means, but I basically just remember from that game grinding in the beginning just to get job points so I could make everybody an onion knight, and I just spent like hours doing that. And I know we turned into frogs at one point. I think that's really the only thing I remember. And then I played Final Fantasy IV on DS, which a lot of people don't like that version of it, but I didn't really know any better, so I ended up really liking it. It had voice acting, and I guess it's actually harder at the end than the original, but that has been my favorite Final Fantasy for a long time. Because then after that, I jumped all the way to 10 on PS2, and I really like that one as well. And then let's see, after that, I think I jumped to Final Fantasy 13 on Xbox 360, and I played for some reason I played to the part that everybody like the first 30 hours, and then it opens up, but I played those first 30 hours and then I just stopped. So I never finished it, but I should go back.
Can I just say that that opening up is the most like anticlimactic part of the game? Like everyone talks about, oh, it finally opens up at 30, and then it's just like there's a few statues that give you some side quests to kill some monsters. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's like a huge open field of nothing, isn't it, pretty much?
I was like, I was just fine with the hallway. This isn't
I
interesting.
know that maybe that's why I stopped, but I honestly don't remember. And then once I got the Vita, I went back and tried Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. And then I tried 15 when it came to PS4, and I did not really like it very much. I think I played like 10 hours. I'm just like, I'm not really liking it. But I eventually want to go back and give 13 and 15 a shot. And then when Remake came out, I was initially one of those people that were really mad that it wasn't just a remake like I wanted it, like with the turn based combat. I'm like, they are changing it. I'm not happy about this. I refuse to buy this game. I refuse to play this. I hate it already without even trying it. And then I'm like, well, I guess I should try it just to see. And I ended up loving it. So I'm like, well, I guess I got to eat my words on this. But honestly, before Remake, I was going to be done with Final Fantasy after the failures of 13 and 15 in my mind. But then I always thought 16 looked interesting when it was coming out, but I didn't have a PS5 at the time. But I didn't expect it to, I didn't expect to like it as much or for it to be as good as I think it is. But I know Connor, when we did the show last year after he played it, he's like, "Oh, you're gonna love this game. You should definitely play this when it comes to PC." So even though people tried to get me to play the demo and all that beforehand, I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna wait and play it when it came out and risk it. And it paid off big time because I ended up obviously loving it, and that's where I'm at in Final Fantasy now.
Yep, and you got to play in the nice fancy graphics on a 4080.
Oh yeah, that was it's definitely I still think it's like the best looking PC game I've ever played. Like it had no issues at all either the whole time. Like I never had any stuttering or random crashes or any weird glitches. Like it just ran perfectly and looked perfect the whole time.
Yeah, it's still one of the best PS5 looking PS5 games too. Like playing it on an OLED, especially on some of these
Mhm.
boss fights, was like
Jeez, yeah.
crazy, crazy, crazy.
We have like Joanna got me like just like a photo like those albums that you can put like digital pictures on and it like scrolls through, and originally I just put like a random picture of the Bahamut boss fight on. She's like, why is this picture on here? I'm like, well, we needed pictures and it looks so cool, so
You're gonna like one day it's just gonna be like it's gonna be like family pictures and all that,
Yeah,
and just the random Bahamut's gonna pop up in the middle of
That's what
those.
always happens
it's like
too.
here's Straw Hat Junior's baby picture. Here's
Yeah.
Bahamut.
It's spirit animal.
That's so good. I mean, it's a peak boss fight, so I can't blame you.
Yeah, I don't think I ever took so many screenshots, like just pictures,
Ah,
as in
it's
this game. Like I
stunning.
never do that stuff. I'd never take pictures of games.
I think I took a couple of screenshots and I was like, no, if you want to see this, play the game.
That's real.
All right, so I think we're gonna go ahead and just start jumping into the story here. Now, obviously, it took me almost 60 hours to play the game, so we're not gonna go beat by beat here. But I just want to start out with how good the intro was, because not only is the opening like cinematic with all the crazy stuff going on with the different fights and I guess what are they called?
Icons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
icons, the
yeah.
icons. But I even thought like the initial part when you, because I usually don't like when you like go back and start with like younger versions like of Clive, Joshua,
Yeah.
and Jill, but like I thought they did a really good job. Like they obviously established with is it Annabella, I think's her name. Yeah, Annabella. Like they gave you a character to hate right away. Like just like, oh, I'm not like I gotta prove that Clive is good. And I just thought like from the instant with, well, even like it going back before that, like when you have the scenes with Benedicta and Hugo and all them, like they just grabbed you instantly. I don't know what you guys thought, but sometimes games take a while to get going, especially JRPGs, but I thought they like grabbed me from the beginning.
Yeah,
No,
I
this
think.
game does an incredible. Sorry.
Oh, my bad. I think the intro does a really good job of tone setting because, like, it puts you right in the middle of a battle, but also like so it lets you see like the willing like how much war plays a part in this world, and also the political struggle of having an icon and like how icons are used by countries. I think that does a really good job of establishing
Mm-hmm.
that aspect of the story. And then also I sometimes get conflicted about NVIDIA res stories where like you start at the middle and then you go back,
Mm-hmm.
like Straw was saying, but I felt like they didn't go far. They didn't go like put you in like the middle of the game. It was still very much the beginning of the game. So it felt like you weren't spending so much time like trying to get back to what you first saw. So I feel like that can kind of drag on in
Yeah.
JRPG sometimes, but
Yeah, it was like you only went back 2 hours, not 30 hours.
yeah.
Yeah, which
So
is a pretty big difference.
yeah, so I think that it just did a really good job of setting the tone, and especially like the the flashback was so well done in terms of like establishing like a clear like initial antagonist and like also setting up a mystery to like with
Yeah.
Clive's transformation and like what Ifrit even is, and uh, giving you a strong motivation about Joshua. So I think it just does a really good job of immediately getting you hooked.
Yeah. All the.
I have to be the first person because I'm sure everyone else wants to say it, or maybe they don't. I don't know, but I'm going to, and praise Ben Starr because this man right away got me so emotionally invested in this game with something as simple as his voice acting. And I feel like the intro hits for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, I think it's really well done. It, like Frog just said, it creates a very good mystery, everything like that. But specifically, when he thinks Joshua's basically dead, and you kind of get the cries of anguish from him, like that line just kind of lives rent free in my head from him, and it's so well done. And it's one of my favorite voice acting performances in a game, I think, ever. And it's so does a great job at just setting the tone of what's to come and gets you emotionally invested in what this long epic story is going to be. And it's like why I said earlier that if I had played the demo, I would have caved so hard, because the demo is basically the end of that kind of little prologue section, the first
Mm-hmm.
2-3 hours, whatever it is. And yeah, it's perfect. It's so well done, and it just does just an amazing job of drawing you into the world.
It simultaneously, what was really impressive to me is in the first 2 hours they say this is a completely different Final Fantasy game than any of the ones you've experienced so far. Like the tone
Mm-hmm.
setting is so distinct, and it goes dark, but at the same time it's not really in that kind of like cruel way that Game of Thrones can get, as you later discover through it. But still, it's like serious in a way that other Final Fantasies just some aren't.
right?
And,
Because it doesn't like the Final Fantasy, the crystals is like obviously a popular a bunch of the older Final Fantasies revolved around that, and even like spin-offs like Bravely Default like to focus on the four crystals. But I thought the way they handled it in this game was one of my favorite ways, just because it's like, well, the crystals aren't necessarily the best thing to have here. It can
yeah,
make things worse. Where the other Final Fantasy games, the crystals are like everything. You usually have to purify the crystals.
yeah. It's the crystals are less abstract in how they interact with everyone's lives. They're a more direct involvement, and they feel almost like it's almost like they actually did it really well in Final Fantasy VII as well with like the Mako
Mm-hmm.
reactors and like that. They basically like okay, the crystals are that same level of importance and that same presence in the story as a Mako reactor, which was the other point I was going to make is that like the when Final Fantasy Remake came out, the thing I was immediately impressed by was all the details and like the cinematics and the direction and all the visuals and all the little animations that there was just so much thought put into every inch of the screen, and that came out immediately in 16. It was just I have I don't like there's maybe Santa Monica with like the God of War stuff is like the only or Naughty Dog. Those are like the only two other studios that I can think of off the top of my head that are even comparable to the level. But I was just blown away with like every little detail of the voice acting, the character animations, just like the composition of every shot. It was actually like it actually felt like professional cinematography.
Yeah, I to bounce off of that, it definitely felt like more focus was paid attention to those things because as much as I love like Final Fantasy, as much as like I respect the Final Fantasy VII remakes, like there is still a level of like the quote unquote like anime voice acting in like the that kind of presentation, but it felt like they emphasized like the cinematography and like more grounded vocal performances to fit the tone better because
Yeah,
it is a more like political story. It takes itself a lot more seriously than something where you're playing mini games all the time or whatever. But
yeah,
it also to bounce off the crystals as well. I really like how they immediately emphasize like similar to how like the icons are used as like a political tool. Like
Mm-hmm.
you immediately understand that the crystals are like also a political tool where if you have access to a crystal, you're strengthened as a nation. So people are gonna try to like take your territory so you can get access to the crystal and like it uses the crystals that are popular with Final Fantasy and immediately like presents it as like a political bargaining chip. And I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I really like the politics of the game too. It feels like I know it gets a lot of comparisons to Game of Thrones in I've heard, and I don't disagree with those. Like it feels very like at least the start anyways, it kind of feels like people are vying and like you kind of get that early bit with Benedicta and Hugo and you're like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
these are the schemers and what are they up to?" And you kind of, get to see a sense of different people and where their places are in this world and kind of what they're after, and that's something I've always enjoyed. Like as I've gone on with, I'll quote one of your guys' favorite games, not you, Frog, but Straw and Connor, and that's the Trails series.
I didn't think
Um,
Addi was the first to bring it up, but I knew it was going to come up eventually.
yeah, no, I feel like the thing I enjoy the most about Trails is when it gets political. I enjoy the politics of Trails, and I feel like that's something that's can is not typically explored a ton in JRPGs. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it can be for sure, but I don't know if it's explored well. And I definitely feel like here it was a hook to get me in, and I think as the story goes, less so. Like I feel like once you kind of figure out what's going on, and it's all about the crystals, and you're freeing the people from the shackles and everything like that. It becomes less of a thing for me,
It,
but I still really enjoyed that opening setup and kind of
yeah,
letting the dominoes fall into place,
it
so to speak.
graduates from this very like concrete story and then slowly increments its way back to being I hit near the middle of the story. I know some people were getting upset that it was feeling less like Game of Thrones. I was like, I wanted more of that that kingdom and that king drama, right? Or the throne drama. I forget the
Mm-hmm.
term, better term. Some people are upset that it was like dropping out of that, but I was like, no, thank God, it's an actual Final Fantasy story. But because they do that transition from like the day to day life of all these kingdoms, and then build their way to what is the source of all this strife, and then they get into the abstract later. I just love the way it all connected.
They do a
I'm
great.
to-
Oh,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry, Straw. You go ahead.
I was just gonna say they do a great job as well as just like kind of easing you into the story. I feel like too, because at the beginning, like Clive's just mad that he thinks somebody killed Joshua. Like he's chasing this dark demon that ends up, of course, being himself. But he that's your initial thing. Like you're just trying to do that, and then you're trying to like you run into the characters like Benedicta, who you end up fighting, and then after that, my favorite part of the story, just to kind of sum it up, I want to dive more into the characters, which we can bring the
Yeah,
story into that too. But the part with like Hugo, like I feel like that, like when he kidnaps Jill, and then you have to go after him, and then you just kind of start going after the crystals after that, and then you're also dealing with Ultima, who's trying to ultimately take possession of you and erase the world. But I feel like they just do a great job of building up and introducing you through characters and through kingdoms and having a pretty basic setup, because Final Fantasy X was always my favorite way they handled summoning and like the different icons in that one, but I feel like this has surpassed it, because I feel like having them like belonging to a kingdom, owning them as like your power, your main military force, is a lot more interesting than just most Final Fantasies that they're just a summon to do a really cool attack, which is fine. But I really like when they integrate in the story, which
yeah,
is what 10 did, and 16 took it to a whole nother level, I feel like.
and then give them
Yeah, I
that
agree.
double-edged effect too, where anytime there's so many icons, you're like, no, don't do that. You're gonna turn more into stone.
I know.
Yeah, it's funny playing through all these older Final Fantasy games, and yeah, they're just treated as really cool kind of summons you can get later on,
Hmm.
and they give powerful attacks and they're useful. Don't get me wrong, but some of them are optional, so they are kind of treated somewhat as an afterthought.
Like Knights of the Round.
Yeah, for sure. With 16 though, no, they're heavily important to the story. They're very integrated into it. And every time you fight a new icon and you basically kill them, stripping, or not always kill them, but sometimes kill them and strip them of that power, and you kind of, it's almost like an obligation, like this is now your power and
Hmm.
you need to treat it as such. And I don't know, if it makes you feel very powerful. Like I love that the game, like I always love power fantasies to begin with, and that's why I don't have a problem. I'm sure we'll talk about the gameplay later and how people are like, "Ooh,
Hmm.
it's too easy." But so I didn't have a problem with that, because this game is just a giant power fantasy to me, and
Yeah,
it's
the power
it makes,
and
yeah,
the
it makes you want to feel
responsibility.
powerful. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and going back to the transitioning from a political story into a Final Fantasy story. Well, they're interchangeable sometimes, but
Yeah,
I really liked that because it didn't wasn't that like the political story just like didn't matter anymore. It was that like you realize that the machinations of all of this politics was because of Ultima, and
exactly.
you realize just how much he was like influencing things behind the scenes, and like these events probably would have played out, but it was his influence that caused them to accelerate like they did, and in order for like some like Sandbreck to do it, like start invading and stuff, and it's like, oh, uh and it's something where like the characters actually take notice of it. Like Dion might, well, probably Dion's probably my favorite character once we get to the characters also, but Dion talking to his father being like, you
Hmm.
weren't like this before, you were a peaceful ruler, and I don't know what's happening to you right now. And you realize it's because it's another entity that's manipulating things behind the scenes in order to like enact its ultimate goal, but it's still using the political story and like the king versus king kind of framework in order to like enact its plan. And I
Yeah,
thought that made it so it wasn't like a super jarring transition into becoming Final Fantasy. It was like oh, so this is it kind of recontextualizes what the game was doing before.
Right. And like I've heard, some people just like, oh, it's another god who wants to destroy the world, but like it's not. Like there's like this actually happens in real life where you get
Mm-hmm.
these powerful people and they get caught up in some weird ideological belief structure that says, oh, actually, we just got to destroy all this thing and reset from the bottom. Like that pops up in history all over the place, usually in like smaller scale, not like a global scale, but like
Right.
you got reports of like rich people these days are going and building bunkers out in the middle of nowhere and basically all a bunch of them make plans for like, well, if things go south, I'm going to upload my consciousness to a computer and peace out. See ya, pores. Right?
Yeah.
That happens. That's what this story is about. That's what it's getting to with Ultima. That's who Ultima is. He's that terrible influence that's causing all these people who are supposed to be responsible for the nation and responsible for the power of the crystals, and they're just like, no, that's hard. I'm just gonna peace out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it felt really human in a way where it's like this is an alien entity in the sorts, but it's also like the only reason it's doing its plan is because it doesn't have the capacity to understand that things could be different, and like it saw that it failed and was afraid of that fear of it failing more, and just wanted to cut it off instead of trying to like
Yeah,
work with what was already there. So
I think what I want to kind of do next is like we'll keep going with the story, but I want to start integrating characters in because I feel like that's going to kind of guide us along the story parts we want to touch on. And I think the first character I want to start talking about, we already talked about her before, but it's Annabella. She's obviously the person that everybody loves to hate, and I feel like she's the one that gets people like everybody's glaring at her the minute she's on screen because she likes Joshua. She wants to push him as the head for a reason because it's her son, and Clive is not. But I like the interactions between her and Elwyn, which he of course doesn't last long. But then I did not expect her to just peace out, go to another kingdom, have another heir, and then just do the same thing and screw with Dion, basically.
yeah,
But it's so funny how she is just like, she just fits this, like, she would fit Game of Thrones very well, I feel like, because she's just
Yes.
very focused on it's all about your bloodlines. Like, that is anything. Like, that's everything. Like, you have to have pure royal blood to be any importance, to have any decision making. And because she obviously at the end she ends up killing herself. But what did you guys think of how they handled her? Because like I said, a lot of people hate her for good reason, but I think she's a
Well,
obviously good instrument in the story.
yeah, she's intentionally made to hate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can say what you want, and I know it's a little bit cliche, but one of the biggest things with any game, or not just game, but any motivating factor is revenge. You have this horrific event that happens at the beginning of this game, and from what we can see, Annabelle is the one behind this. She's the one that
Mm-hmm.
orchestrated this. She's the reason that we think Joshua is now dead, and you're basically about to be sold into slavery. So yeah, like you want to. The motivation is to find her. Why did you do this? And get revenge. And that's just such a basic human instinct, and it's such a great way to mold your story. I think she did. I think she's a great character. She's awful. You hate her, and she kind of has a pathetic end, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
very fitting for a
yes,
character like hers, and it's very deserved. Very, very deserved. He gets a little bit of revenge out of it, and closure, and so does Dion. Which shout out Dion, he's great. We'll talk about him more, I'm sure, in a bit. But yeah, no, I can't stand her. That very rightfully so.
yeah, she's a really great like intentional like foil because especially once you actually confront her at the halfway point, like you're expecting like some grand reveal from her, and then you realize that her plans are really they're just framed based on her own like perspective about royalty and bloodlines and
yeah.
stuff.
She's just
And like
pathetic.
yeah, based on
Mm-hmm.
everything you've gone through at that point, like hearing her explain herself feels even more pathetic because you're like, I've overcome so much adversity, I've understood myself, I've gained allies, and then this resolution that I thought I was going to get by confronting you just boils down to I care about who the blood of the ruler is, and blood is power. and then you're just like, at that point you're just like,
Yeah, she's
none of
so
that
petty.
matters, but she's so caught
Mm-hmm.
up in her own hype about those concepts that she doesn't even like realize how pathetic it sounds. And then even to the point where Joshua comes and like offers her his hand. It's like, hey, come out from you don't need to kill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll still help you. Like even despite how terrible you were to everyone, like he's still empathetic in that regard. Because I think he kind of understands that like you're really pathetic at this point and you just need someone to like wake you up.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, she's brought up in an environment where that was like it's very reasonable to get that kind of belief and ideology in that sort of cutthroat nobility environment. So it's like, well, you kind of are a product of your environment. Maybe we can help you, but no, lost cause.
Yep. Yeah, I think next I want to go to. I'm gonna like combo these two characters because I think they're pretty important early on, and that's Benedicta and Sid. Now I'll let you guys start talking about Benedicta, but she's kind of like your first real obstacle, and then Sid was one of my most surprising characters because obviously Sid's another popular. There's always a Sid in every Final Fantasy game, and they can play crucial parts, but I did not expect this Sid to become one of my favorite characters and to be one of the especially the crucial beginning characters that kind of shapes Clive to get his goals and he ends up becoming the new one. So what did you
Yeah,
guys think of those two, especially since in the early game they pretty much are the standouts?
Benedicta was very interesting in that she's kind of, especially as like one of the first real villains you fight, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
is that I forget the mother's name already, but she's like trying to be that same sort of person, but it's more immediately obvious how much she is being used, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like immediately pitiable, and just all the emotion, the scenes, everything going up to her. Like I don't know, that was one of the scenes I wrote down of what stuck out to me was the Garuda fight and that whole sequence
Oh
and just
yeah.
everything that happens there. It's just so like I don't know if heart wrenching is the right word for it, but it just like sticks in you watching this person self destruct.
Yeah, I really liked Benedicta. Um, Bonk. But yeah, no, I did like her too. I think she is an interesting character. I almost wish she was around a little bit longer. Like she does die fairly early
Yeah.
into the game. And I understand why. Like it makes sense. Like, it's kind of how it, introduces. I think she's like the first kind of powers you inherit, if I
Yep.
recall
She
correctly.
Yeah.
is, yep.
So, and I understand why they kind of do that to, you know, to kind of get that going.
I use using that
But
uppercut for the rest of the game.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I really like her. I like her. I like the kind of scene she has with Hugo. She's very schemy. You're kind of wondering what she's up to and how she's gonna play into things. But no, I enjoyed her for sure. I think she's a good character. And then just to touch on Sid for a minute because you mentioned him as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sid's great. Like I think he's probably the my favorite
Oh
rendition of
yeah,
Sid I've
me
seen
too.
so far that I can think of pretty easily actually.
Definitely the best voice acting.
Oh yeah, like great voice
Oh my
acting,
gosh.
and I love the way that they treat Sid as like Sid's not like so Sid is Sid obviously at the start of this game, but then Sid evolves into something else because you become Sid
Mm-hmm.
basically, and I think that's such a cool fucking concept that Sid is just this kind of bastion of hope, and he's like
Yeah.
this leader of the resistance, and there can be multiple Sids, and I love that idea. I think that's so fucking cool. But yeah, obviously, speaking of the Sid that we see, this Sid is great. He's fantastic, really well voice acted, and just a character that right away you can kind of get behind. And that was one that when he ends up dying, I was not expecting that one,
Mm-hmm.
and it definitely threw me for a bit of an emotional loop because it's like, damn, like he's one of the best characters in this game, and like he's gone now, but definitely serves the purpose of the story and is really great.
Yeah, just to go back to Benedicta for a little bit. What I really liked about her is just how like in spite of everything and how she comes off and presents herself, she really just wanted that connection. And like her flashback where it's like in the pure white background just seeing Sid like walk away and like being out of
Mm-hmm.
reach. It's if she felt the most human of like the antagonists in a way where like she's doing all these terrible things because she's being manipulated on like a political scale, but at the heart of her character is just she had a connection with someone and she lost that connection, and she hasn't really been able to become anyone else besides like someone who yearns for that still. So her death was especially sad just because like Sid has to like lament over her body like this. I know this isn't what you wanted, so I wish I could have done something to get you out of that situation. And Sid is just like a deeply like he's a like a symbolic character in a way where he is flawed in terms of his like approach sometimes, or like he's doesn't fully have the right concept of like what's going on in the reality, but his heart's always been in the right place where he wants to use this power he has even at the expense of his own body in order to better the people around him. And that's why I felt perfect where when he dies, he becomes like a symbolic figure for Clive, so he can take up the mantle and do the same kind of activism and work that Sid did, and just to kind of prove that like the ideas that Sid had about liberating his people and creating a world where everyone could live together just comfortably was like the right goal to pursue. So I really liked that. Like even if Sid wasn't around for as long as I would have liked him, his character served a really important purpose of making Clive see that the world is beyond what he initially thought it was. Because Clive was very much based on her revenge, and then he realizes that that revenge wasn't going to be fruitful very quickly in the game. So it was nice that Sid gave him that purpose where what he was living his life for was ripped away from him, but he's still able to use his strength and do good work because of Sid. And
Yeah.
I think they were both really Sid. Benedicta was important for Sid, and Sid was important for the characters as a whole and everyone in the world, I think.
Yeah, like because of Sid, when you finally get to that point where you're facing off with the mother character, what's her name again?
Benedicta. Oh no.
No,
Or
Uh,
Annabelle.
Annabella.
Annabelle.
Yeah.
When you're facing off with Annabella, it's just like you've worked so long with Sid at that point. So it's like Clive's moved on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like he's not here for revenge, which is what Annabelle's sitting there thinking this is all about. It's all about revenge, like, and he's like, no, we're moving on to bigger and better things. There's more important things than us.
Yeah. I genuinely loved how quickly the revenge story was like resolved in a way,
Yeah.
because you think it's going to be like the main overarching like pursuit for Clive, but then it gets resolved in the first 10-15
Yes.
hours, and then it allows that character to be more than what his initial goal was, which I
Mm-hmm.
think
Yeah.
was really important for growth.
Which is,
Well, yeah, it is important for growth, but it's also very fitting for someone like Clive because he's obviously consumed by that idea at first, but you see Clive grow and what he becomes, and yeah, that's just not him as a
yeah,
person. So it's very good that you're right that kind of get that wrapped up and dealt with fairly early, so he can kind of move on to what his true purpose is.
right. And it's how they also separated themselves from what they didn't want to be from the Game of Thrones comparisons. It's like
Mm-hmm.
within the first act, the heart comes in, and it's just like, yes, this betrayal happened, but I'm gonna seek healing by pursuing a greater goal instead of the rest of the series being caught up in these personal grudges.
It's funny too because yeah, Clive's revenge story ends pretty quick, but then after Benedicta's death, it starts another revenge story from Hugo because Hugo obviously was in love with her and he wants to kill Sid, the other Sid, not Clive, because he thinks he's the one who killed him,
Yeah,
but it ends up being Clive who did. And this is one of my favorite parts in the game. I think we'll combine talking about Hugo and Frog's favorite guy, Dion, because one of
Let's
my
go.
favorite parts was when the two kingdoms, like their two kingdoms, were like going back and forth fighting. And of course, everybody's like, well, just turn into Titan, just turn into Bahamut, and we can end this. But it's like a cat and mouse game of being like, well, I can't change into Bahamut because then Hugo will change into Titan, and we're just going to destroy everyone. So we have to kind of just go back and forth without doing that to try to win the war, basically, because those were the two king titans at the time basically that were going back and forth, and I just like the dynamic between that the back and forth. And then of course you had Hugo who kidnaps Jill and really makes you want to get mad at Clive. And then Frog kind of touched on it earlier. You have Dion with his relationship with his father that has changed a lot since Annabella moved on the scene. So yeah, this was my favorite part of the game. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but what did you guys think of the parts mainly revolving around Hugo and Dion?
That was a really cool dynamic, but maybe I'm going backwards a little bit. But that moment where Clive uh, said like is dueling off with Hugo, and Hugo's screaming at him about killing Benedicta,
Mm-hmm.
and really Clive beat Benedicta, but he wasn't the one who beheaded her, right? Like he
Right.
was not actually the one who killed her, nor was Sid. But I just love that moment in the middle of the fight, and you think, oh, he's going to try to clear up this misunderstanding or whatever. No, he's just so done with Hugo that
Mm-hmm.
he says, "Yeah, I killed
Yep,
her.
it's me.
Well, what are
Yeah,
you gonna do about it?"
yeah, like he understands that like at this point it would be impossible to try to reason with Hugo, especially with all the atrocities that Hugo's done to
Yeah,
them. So he's just like, I'm gonna take up this mantle, even if I'm not entirely responsible. I'm just gonna take it all, so we could just deal with this all at
yeah.
once.
That was one of those little details where it's just like that's not a common writing play. I feel like in Final Fantasy or just games in general.
Yeah, Hugo I really liked, and because he was definitely like the stereotypical like meathead,
Yep.
like the most obviously politically manipulated person in the game. But like you really disrespect, like he's just all brawn. Like he understands what he cares about. Like he really cared about Benedicta and like the life that he envisioned with her, but he doesn't really have like a lot of grand strategy. Like he lashes out easily, and like especially when
Mm-hmm.
his hands get cut off, he just fumbles and like has like
Yeah, that was fascinating.
zero capability of like being able to adapt to a new situation, which I really liked about him because I don't know, he's just that kind of guy. It's like I could try to learn how to work with these metal hands, but
I
fuck
won't.
that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do
He
that.
he's also just the type, like, I feel like he would be how a lot of people would handle having this ultimate power. Like he knew he was like the big bad. He wanted riches, he wanted women, he wanted all that stuff, and he wasn't afraid to be like, "No, this is what we're doing. And guess what? You guys really can't tell me no because it's up to me. I'm in charge." So,
Yeah, he wasn't stupid either. Like he was
no.
clever. He just wasn't wise.
Yeah, he would come up with good situations and like obviously knew how to use his power to his advantage and everything. Especially like he was a political weapon, but he had the final say at the table still.
Mhm.
So I think that was a good
I feel
position for him. But like in terms of like grand strategy or like seeing the big picture,
Yeah,
that wasn't Hugo.
I feel like Hugo very easily could have been a pretty stereotypical character, and in some ways, he is a big lugging meathead, but he's a lot smarter than he looks, and he's very intense in what he wants. And yeah, I really enjoyed that about his character. I also like how I think it was Straw that you were mentioning how they kind of frame it that like yes, obviously, he could just turn into his icon, which I'm blanking on right now.
Titan.
Thank you, Titan, and Dion could turn into Bahamut, and just kind of end that in a day. But the destruction it would be caused would be
yeah.
Mhm.
massive, which
Which
they
we see
which
right
they
at the
do a good
beginning
job.
of the game.
Yeah, you see right at the beginning of the game what the kind of destruction these icons can cause. It's nothing to sneeze at. So yeah, no, I think they did a great job with Hugo's character, making him into something that could be very predictable, but not. And then of course Dion is just a goat. Like Dion is probably one of the more not that I don't want to disrespect people's opinions. Obviously, you can not be into Final Fantasy 16 or whatnot, but when people kind of just really go, Dion's nothing, he's a filler character, whatever, that makes me think you didn't play the game or you
Yeah,
weren't actively trying to pay attention, because he's one of the most like complex characters in that game with a lot of depth to him. And I fucking love Dion.
yeah,
And obviously we'll talk about the boss fights
Mhm.
a little bit later, but that's just one of the best
yeah,
moments I think in a game ever. Period. So
yeah.
yeah, I love Dion.
Dion represents noblesse oblige. Like that entire concept is, just that classic feudal responsibility. It's like the best of the noble class of history,
Mhm.
right? And you get to see how he gets manipulated into bad situations and blamed for things that he
Hmm.
rightly was not his problem, like they weren't his fault. He was trying to do his best, and you get to see like that fall from grace, but even in that, he's still this magnificent dragon.
Yep. My favorite part, I think, with him was just his relationship with his father, because you could see like the pain that he dealt with when his father started changing due to Ultima and Annabella's influences, and then obviously I don't even think like it was just the character change in his father, and you could see the emotion that brought onto him, like it just messed with him. That's even why he went kind of crazy with Bahamut at one point. It's just like it's not even that he wouldn't be king. It's just that his father was not the man that he admired and respected all these years. And they did a great job of really showing that relationship and what it meant to Dion and how much it hurt him when it fell apart like it did.
Yeah, Dion is a deeply empathetic character to me because he like his reaction to his father changing wasn't that like I need to take out my father. It's like I just need to I need to see you need to see
Mhm.
the world that I'm seeing and like how you would have seen it before you got manipulated. And the fact that he was even able to like meet with Joshua, hear what Joshua was claiming, which sounded crazy if you weren't like deeply involved in the story, and was like able to like be like, okay, I'm gonna take you at your word because you wouldn't be coming to me if you weren't serious about this, and I'm gonna do what I can to like make things better. I don't want to kill my father. I don't want to like hurt anyone, but I need you to understand that what you're doing isn't right, and you weren't like this before. And then especially with the son, Annabella's son,
Yeah,
I forgot his name, but just
Looks
twisting the
like
knife.
Olivier or
Oh
something.
yeah,
I have
Olivier.
a yeah.
Just twisting the knife and like orchestrating the assassination of his own father, which he never wanted to get into that situation, but Ultima was just able to tug at the strings that mattered to Dion the most, which was his family and the people around him, and then just make it so that Dion obviously like he lost everything that he cared about because he wanted to protect his father, he wanted to make his father back to who he was, but he ends up getting manipulated to kill his father, and then gets goes on a rampage because he loses control of his power. And then
Hmm.
my favorite part about that is that he causes so much death and destruction during his fight as Bahamut, but he doesn't like cower away because of that. Like he
yeah,
understands that like this is something I did. I have to make up for this. I don't know if I ever will, but I'm gonna do what I can to like. I hurt the people that I was trying to protect, so I'm gonna do what I can to make sure that their lives are okay. And
yeah.
he's
He's a
just a goat. He's just the goat.
yeah. He's just like the great, like a perfect manifestation of the good qualities of nobility for the story, which is very, you know, he he's, I'm not going to make the comparisons just because I don't want to talk about Game of Thrones.
I was
Understandable.
I don't know if you guys were surprised, but I was not expecting him to be with you all the way to the end with Joshua and
Yeah,
Clive at the final fight against Ultima. I did not expect that. I mean, I thought if anything, maybe he'd like fight in a different area or something, but I didn't expect him to be right with you, which was
that
cool.
was pretty hype.
I was
No, it was awesome. It was hype, and he, sacrifices himself in a
Hmm.
huge moment there near the end.
Yeah, I was really glad he
Uh,
was there because it wouldn't have been fitting for his character if he did wasn't there for the final fight because of just how
Yeah,
much of his life changed because of Ultima. Like the death of
yeah,
his father, the destruction of Sambrek, like all of that was because of Ultima. So it was nice that he was able to like take a stand against that, and also showed just how much he'd grown from feeling like resentful and remorseful for everything he did, and shows that like even at the end against this insurmountable threat, he's still willing to do what's best as a noble and what's best for his people, which is to defeat Ultima. So I'm really glad he was able to be there, at least for the beginning of that fight.
so this is slightly off topic, and I was just looking at the guideline that you sent, Straw Hat, and there's one thing not in here, and I'm just going to mention this now, just in case it doesn't get brought up again. And theoretically, I probably would have brought it up during boss battles, but since we're talking about Dion, and it just makes me keep thinking about that boss battle, anyways, I just want to mention how fucking hard the music slaps in
Oh
this game
yeah.
from beginning
yes,
to end. It is just
so good.
consistently excellent. and one of my favorite soundtracks in a game.
Same.
I think ever personally. Like if there's an orchestra for this like thing, I will go like no matter where it is and try to see this because it's so good. Like there are so many songs from this game that I have consistently just playing on my Spotify
Ugh,
playlist now.
the boss
Um,
battle music,
but
especially,
the
is just
the boss battle music is just disgusting. Like there's so many things that go into these hype boss battles, but the music is definitely part of it. It just gets you so amped up. It makes you want to like literally run through a wall. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, Bahamut's theme is still like one of my favorite tracks in like any video game.
Yes, it's
It's just
outstanding.
that
It's
it
so good.
elevated that scene so much, and like yeah, these scenes would be really hype on their own, but Masayoshi Soken just killed it this whole game and really elevated what was already great material and just made it even more exciting.
the the shoot, what's this? The Titan boss fight. That was
Oh
the
my
one
god,
where
yeah.
I'm like, what
oh
is
yeah, that
going
was.
on here? There's metal in this fantasy, and it doesn't feel jarring.
Yeah, the start of that fight just it's one complete style where it's like this wasn't in this game before this, but it somehow totally fits because it just fits how Hugo was as a character, where it's like
hmm
he wasn't really planning for like the long-term ramifications of everything, so I'm just going to play this rocking song, and it just totally fits. Like I don't know how to describe it, and then it elevates like near the end of the fight into something more traditional for that soundtrack, but it feels like it's earned at that point because of how much of you've gone through to get to that point, and it's just incredible stuff.
There's one character I kind of want to talk about. I'm curious how you guys feel because all the characters we've talked about so far, I pretty much adored and at least if not adored, appreciated what they did in the story. But how did you guys feel about Barnabas? Because I was a little bit like he was a good enough like near the end type villain, but I definitely did not connect with him as much as I liked Hugo, Benedicta, or Dion. Like, and as far as the other icons, like I just thought like he was pretty much just. I mean, he obviously you get to see his backstory a bit with how Ultima just really has messed with him and completely he's just given himself over to him, which kind of deteriorates his character a bit. But what did you guys think of him?
I thought he was one of the
I like
standouts.
him. Yeah,
Okay.
I really like him. I think he's very broken. Like you said, he's broken more than I think most characters in
Oh
this game.
yeah.
Ultima has completely fucking brain rotted this guy to the point where any shell of what the actual Barnabas might be, I don't know if we see much of it,
Yeah,
honestly.
he's
Uh,
got a
sorry, go ahead.
mysterious backstory with like where he came
Yeah,
from, some continent side.
Mm-hmm.
He has a kind of similar backstory to Clive's, right? If I'm
Right.
remembering
Yeah,
correctly,
you're
he
right.
was like
yep.
in slavery and fought his way up
Mm-hmm.
to being this big position, but he took the completely like he didn't sip the Kool Aid, like he didn't get the Sid Kool Aid, right? He got the Ultima Kool Aid, and
Mm-hmm.
he went full nihilist. And what I really like about Barnabas is how so much of his story is told through the country he controls. Like you spend so much time with the good guys, and you're in your little, you know, uh, your hideaway, and you're building up all this life and trying to figure out how to live without magic, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then there's Barnabas. You go to his home in his little island kingdom, and it's dead. Not just kind of dead, it's dead. Like it is an yeah, it is an undead kingdom, and you just see up front what the difference between these two characters is, and it like just I love how much of his character is told through that environment.
Yeah, as like a character, I didn't really resonate with Barnabas as much. I think it was probably because of those reasons. I would say that like it might be an intentional that you don't connect with him very much because of how much
Right.
he's already given himself up to Ultima. But I do like your example of like seeing his character through his environment because unrelated game, but Tales of Arise did a very similar thing when you get to a
Great
certain
game, by the way.
character's kingdom because you understand like what is this guy's philosophy. You walk around his kingdom and you immediately understand what his deal is and
Mm-hmm.
what his values are, and I think that does an effective job at like filling in the dots where you might not get it from like deep character interactions like you would get from like maybe Dion or Hugo, but I think it does enough to like make it understandable why Barnabas is such as much of a threat he is, because you also realize that he doesn't really have much to lose at that point, because you can see the environment around him. That's what he cares about, and that's not really something worth protecting. So he's really willing to go all out, really, just to preserve what he cares about, which is, I guess, death.
Well,
But
yeah, it's the exact opposite of
Mm-hmm.
preservation. He wants everything to be like unmade because he's like, oh, this world's terrible. And this guy's saying that it's because you guys screwed it up and we actually just made you all so we could reincarnate reincarnate ourselves in your bodies later. And he's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. I'll just go ahead and throw it all into the garbage now.
yeah, it's like, what am I going to fight for if that's what it ultimate ends up being? What's the point of preserving anything?
Yeah.
But the one aspect of Barnabas I was a little conflicted on was his whole like Oedipus complex thing, where it's like it felt like if this was more Game of Thrones, it would fit a lot more. But as much of Game of Thrones comparisons were made for Final Fantasy 16, it never felt like it really dived into those aspects of Game of Thrones. So like the fact that he just like was resting in his like mother's lap and stuff, it was like
Mm-hmm.
this felt a little out of place just
It's
based
a,
on everything else in the game. But
it's a little out of place, but there's actually some like deeper symbolism with things like that. And I'm no expert, but like, like a mother character is deeply connected to Earth and like life giving and nature and things like that, which he's completely cut off from. So there's a layer of it where it's just like that's his last tie to life, right? Which is this ghost of his mother. So I'm not going to say it's like done the most well way, but there's
Right.
something interesting even there.
All right. Another thing I kind of want to circle back to this, like it's it's a character that has many characters, and it's your home base, Sid's Hideaway. I want to talk about some of the characters here because you obviously meet them a lot, and you do a lot of side quests for them, which we can kind of talk about the side quests a little later. But I think Gav is one of the characters I did not expect to like by the end as much as I did. When I first
Oh
met him,
yeah,
I'm just like, this guy kind of sucks. Like, I don't really like him. But you meet him, you meet Otto, you meet Blackthorn, you meet Vivian, you meet a bunch of characters, and I ended up really just liking pretty much all the characters back at the hideout because it's like your home base. You have mid too. So what do you guys think of the hideout and just like how much the characters like grew with the story as well? With because obviously you could talk about even some of the side quests with like Blackthorn especially had some good ones.
There's a lot of really interesting characters there that I liked. Vivian's great because you get her little history lessons. I found them
Mm-hmm.
very
yeah.
interesting. I really like doing those because I was eating up the backstory, so I thought that was really good. Gav's fun. Like he's just that kind of fun, kind of goofy little side character that you grow to like throughout the game. So I enjoyed him too.
He has a surprising
I
amount
forget.
of depth.
He did.
Yes, he did. I forget about what is the name of the old lady who's
Sharon,
like the
I
kind of
don't know how you say it
yeah
Sharon.
exactly,
yeah.
but
I like her. I like her a lot. She definitely was one that I grew on me throughout the game, and I always enjoyed going here and having the little conversations with her after every time I came back after a big mission or whatever. And then of course you got to mention Mid. Yeah,
Mid.
Mid. She's great. I love her. One of the most peak levels missions in I would say video game history is collecting the space dust for her.
Yes,
Very important mission
absolutely.
and absolutely peak. And yeah, no, so she gives us that mission and it's very important and we're happy to do it for Queen Mid. But yeah, no, Mid's awesome. I think she's Sid's daughter and the granddaughter in
daughter,
this
it's
daughter.
Daughter.
I forget
daughter, yeah,
directly daughter. Yeah,
adopted
and
daughter.
yeah, so you're kind of taking care of her after, of course, Sid dies, and you're the new Sid. And yeah, no, I think she's a very sympathetic character, and I like her a lot. She's very, she's kind of she actually reminds me a lot of the different mids that I've been playing in the older Final Fantasy games. Like, very inventive and like wanting to create things. Obviously, she's a younger girl, which is a lot different than a lot of the other
Mm-hmm.
mids, but definitely in that same sort of lineage, which is really cool.
Yeah, I legitimately was actually invested in the space dust quest. Like,
Same. That was not a joke for
yeah,
me.
I was actually interested in. Oh, we're gonna build this like not magical engine, right? Like they're bringing the invention of a motor into this world, and they're kind of like, what's it gonna do? How are we gonna make this work? And they actually put enough detail into explaining the engineering of it, I was like, oh, okay, that's actually kind of a neat idea, concept, right? And like, I do want to help you. I mean, okay, I'm a software engineer, so like not like a full engineer, mechanical engineer, or anything like that. But obviously, that I guess I'm biased to be really interested in that sort of stuff. But yeah, I really thought it was a cool. There's a lot of people who talk about how the side quests are like so slow after you get those highs of the boss fights, but those are those points where you're looking like, hey, here's what the future is going to look like. We're going
Yeah.
to do this. We're building, like, we're remembering how to plant these things. We're remembering how to make things alive. We're managing to make life, comfortable without magic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love the Hideaway. It's just a really the song that plays in the Hideaway is just such a cozy vibe. So that automatically like gets me in the mood for like spending time with all these characters. Gav
Mm-hmm.
ended up being like one of my favorite characters in the game also,
Mm-hmm.
which was something I never expected. It would have been like some random Joe Schmo character ending up becoming like a standout like character in any other game. But he just has a nice story where you like the where you find him, you don't think he's gonna be much of anything, but then he's like a deeply emotional and like caring person. He cares deeply about like the people around him, and he wants to. I just want to have a drink with him and just like talk to him
Mm-hmm.
about like the future, and like he cared deeply about Sid, and uh, I know how much you could feel how much he cares about what everyone's building. So like when it starts getting threatened, like you feel it the most on Gav. Like especially when he gets his eye cut during the first
Yeah,
like
Mm-hmm.
assault from Hugo. Like you could feel that like it wasn't just him that got broken. It was like he felt broken because of the people around him being hurt, and like this ideal dream that Sid was striving for was being like trampled all around him. And he was just really compelling, and I just was happy that anytime he came on a mission, I was just happy to see him. And then I also loved Mid. She's great. So one detail about Mid that I really liked was that like before she comes into like the Hideaway, she's off at like a college, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that was just like a necessary piece of like world building where it's like you get so absorbed in like the main plot that you forget like some aspects of the world even exist, like
yeah,
universities and like higher education and like other professions. So it was nice that Mid actually came from that background, just so you can kind of hear more about the world from a character who was experiencing things that you would never see in your position, because you were a noble boy who was then like put into slavery and then is like an outlaw. So you never would be able to like it would never come up that Clive would talk about college, for example. So it was
yeah,
nice that those things could come up, and I really did like Mid's inventory quest because,
Mm-hmm.
like Connor said, it was just about like seeing what the world would be with once the main plot is done, how the world would be. Because sometimes if you reach an end of a game and they don't lay those foundations, you kind of leave it feeling a little empty, where it's like I'm
right.
glad that the main story is done, but I can't really like envision what happens next beyond this point. But the game does a really great job of just presenting like what you're doing as Clive is really important, but what really matters after Clive is like how the world will exist and how it will function, and you can start to see those foundations. And I'm also a big fan of like give me some comfy side quests after a big boss fight, because I can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine it being very fun if you do like the Bahamut fight and then you jump immediately into the Barnabas fight. Like
Or
you need some time to like chill out and like
Decompress.
absorb the world, because the world Valistea is such an interesting world that like I would have been a little cheated if we just never got to hear all these world building pieces.
yeah, and like after the Bahamut fight, what's going to feel like sufficiently high enough other than going straight into Odin? So then you have no
Mm-hmm.
build for Odin, but like anything less than Odin after Behemoth would just feel like a slog. It's like that was such a high. There's nothing else you can do other than hunker down and cozy up for a little bit and start the build again.
Yeah, it's annoying to me that why that people are like, I saw that criticism so often of this game about how, oh, it's like the super high
Yeah,
peak, and
go
then,
take a break.
you know, well, yeah, like, what do you like? The game's not fucking like, if everything is just like nonstop, relentless, like go 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 go, like then it loses its muster. Like that's not like, does anyone not follow like a traditional story path?
It's
Like
also
that's not how a story
Yeah, it's also
works.
just not like it's kind of antithetical to the theme of the story, which is that hey, we're not supposed to just be go 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 going and always doing these plots and constantly trying to like put all of our efforts towards some crazy scheme or adventure or another. It's like we kind of actually need to settle down and take the time to like let life happen.
Yep, and we can just kind of. I was going to talk about this later, but we've kind of been touching on side quests, and we can talk about the bounty board too. But yeah, I going into this game, everybody told me all the side quests are horrible. You're going to hate them. I'm just like, but and another big complaint about this game is it's not JRPG enough. But I'm like, well, JRPGs have tons of side quests, and they're also like, well, all you do is go here, kill a monster, go here, take an item. It's like, well, what do you want the side quests to be? Like, I definitely liked a lot of how much, especially with the Sid Hideaway characters, like Gav's story through the side quest. Blackthorn, I thought, had
Yeah,
great side quests. Like, you got to see where he came from. Like he got banished from his village because he ended up leaving, but then you still end up going back there and helping them, and he kind of gets closure with the village head, and that happens for a lot of these characters. But I'm like, compared to other games, like I love Xenoblade Chronicles too. But a lot of the side quests there are like go collect 10 daisies in the field that randomly drop from enemies. I'm like, that sucks compared to the side quests in these games. So and I especially, I guess they added this later. I don't know if it was at launch. I was told it wasn't, but the ability to just teleport back to the quest giver is amazing, and every game should have that because it just like you're done with the side quest, like a little menu pops up and it's like, hey, do you want to go back to so and so? And like, yes, and
I
that's like saves so much time.
I that the time aspect of that is another funny part of the. It's like I took maybe 5 to 10 minutes every time there was a you go to an area and there's like two or three side quests and it takes me like 10-15 minutes to get all of them. I don't know if it's just because of the years of MMO brain rot I put in,
Mm-hmm.
where I knew the cycle. You pick up all the quests and then you just plot a single loop that hits all of the objectives where
Yep,
you go out,
exactly.
come
Exactly.
back
Yeah.
in, you ride the bird every second you get a chance. Doesn't seem like it's going faster, but it is. And then you're done. And you get the nice little plot details.
Yep.
Yeah. Like.
Since I'm gonna kind of bring it up here quickly because I don't know if we're, like if we'll ever end up talking about them naturally, but shout out Ambrosia. Ambrosia
Yeah.
is such a Chad, or Chadette, I should say, and was very very happy when she comes back. And something that you would only get if you do the side quests. Shockingly, so the side quest hate is very overblown and somewhat performative in my opinion, even if you're hating on them, because I think you're just being a little bit ridiculous. I feel like most of them, especially later on, are very plot
Oh yeah.
relevant and important to the story and to the characters. But the stuff even early on, like there's one very early on side quest where you're like delivering food to people, and I've seen people bitch about that one, but like that's literally like it's literally introducing you to what this world is like.
Yeah.
Like the character comments about how like that you're the one delivering it and all this stuff. Like there's literally world building in that side quest. Every side quest has a purpose like that. And if you're ignoring that and you're just looking at you're just grabbing this item and doing this, that's every fucking
Yep,
side quest in
exactly.
every fucking video game. Period. That is all you're doing. You are going somewhere, you are grabbing items, you are bringing it back. People's Witcher 3, which I love Witcher 3, it has great side quests. You're doing the same thing in those side quests. So if you're trying to shit on Final Fantasy 16 for this, you're being performative,
Now,
literally.
I will counter argument just a little bit that Mass Effect 2, I think, provides the model of what people really wanted, which is those, the character missions there are these
Right.
more directed cinematic
Sure.
experiences. There
Yeah.
is a dichotomy where we go from these highly directed main quests with all of these, real details that everyone's latching onto. Then we go to a side quest where there's barely facial animation and it's mostly just kind of reading, right? It's that's so like as Trails fans, we understand that dichotomy of like not all content is created equal.
It's a JRPG thing, essentially. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what these side quests are.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really funny. Like Straw brought that up, where it's like people complain that it wasn't enough a JRPG, but then the entire mission structure of the side quests is the most JRPG thing that's ever been. Like
yes,
you have a hunt board, and
Yep.
you walk to the people, and they do their task, and then because yeah, Addy's also super right, where the bulk of what people get out of side quests and JRPGs is the character interactions and like how it like affects the world and how what you learn about the world, but it's never been about like what you actually do on the side quest. Like sometimes it'll be fight this big monster or go collect these things, and then but the rewarding thing is just what that leads to. Like maybe there's a good character story about connected to it, but it's never like been about the variety of activities for side quests in JRPGs. I feel like,
yeah,
Mhm.
and I feel like Final Fantasy 16 did a great job of like there are definitely some side quests that didn't feel as important as other ones, but it makes it really clear which side quests are like this is going to deepen your connection with these characters specifically. And I think those were the highlights of the game because like I genuinely almost cried during the Ambrosia side quest when that first happened
Yes,
because
that's great.
I don't know, I'm a sucker for animals, and similar thing happened with Torgal's final
Oh
side
yeah, fuck.
quest where it's like
Have we talked
I
about
thought we
Torgal?
were
Fuck.
saving the
No,
two best
yeah,
characters for
I'm
Okay,
later.
saving
okay,
the big three
okay,
for after this. Don't
okay,
worry.
okay.
but
Good. Just
so
making sure.
spoilers,
But
Torgal's the best boy in the world, but yeah, his side quest was just like I'm weak for animals and like but it goes to show that a lot of these character side quests are like deeply personal and like you feel like I feel like you would be getting a lesser experience if you didn't do them because if you don't do them you might not understand the characters as well because you get enough from the main story, but the appeal of a JRPG side quest is to get connected to more of the world and more of the characters.
Yeah, and
So I think that's the main appeal of them, personally.
and that context adds so much weight to what's happening with Barnabas and Ultima at the end, because you're like when you're taking all this the information you're getting from the side quests, you realize how much is going on beyond just the political intrigue is the initial thrust of the story. So then once it does transition out of a specific like political thing, you if you're thinking about all the side quests, you're looking at it in the terms of like what is what is the overarching purpose of this land and this people? Like what are we fighting for?
Yeah, there was one side quest later on in Barnabas's region where it was about retrieving like an old like a book that was banned,
Oh, yep.
and I think that just does such a great job of like showing the world because it emphasizes what literature is and isn't accepted in Valisthea, and also like introduces like a whole like secret society where it's like we are entirely responsible for the dissemination of information and what is allowed to get published. And if you don't do that side quest, you just would never understand that aspect of the world.
and the book stuff is very, very important too because it ties together at the end
Yep.
with a big, beautiful book.
I also just want to shout out the Monster Hunter board. Like, I love that kind of stuff. I did every one. I don't have like anything specific, but those were some of my favorite fights, honestly, in the game. Like, some of them, I think there's like a dragon one that's pretty challenging, and I fought some of the like magical armored soldiers way before I should, and those were some of my favorite like fighting gameplay moments in the game, honestly. Also, this was a random thing that happened to me, but my R1 button like broke. So I at one point I'm just like I could not dodge right. Like I was getting hit by everything. I'm just because I was
Well,
like
that would
doing
have
really
killed
good at
my
the
strategy.
beginning, and I'm just like, what am I like? Am I doing it too quick? But then I found out like my button on my
It
elite
was
controller.
Elite Xbox controller.
Yeah,
Those things are pieces of
I
shit,
know.
man. I swear to
They
God.
they should be so amazing, but there's always one important button that just breaks.
Yeah,
I
I
hate
know.
it.
Yeah,
I love that controller, but this is my second one. The second time it happened, I'm getting a dual sense now. So
yeah,
Let's go, Sony, Sony, Sony,
that's
Sony,
where
Sony.
I'm at. Where I don't know, like
8-bit
elite
though.
controller and or like DualSense Edge. I'm like, do I want to spend more money for something that's probably also going to break like a regular controller?
probably not.
Dude,
Probably not.
8-bit dough. 8-bit dough is the way to
Yeah, I've
go.
heard
I've
those
Those
heard those are
are
things,
good.
good. I've heard those are good.
they're so cheap, but they're so quality.
All
It's
right.
funny how
Well,
that works.
Well, as Addi mentioned, we can't. I wanted to save the big four, I guess, for last, which would be Clive, Jill, Joshua, and our boy Torgal. Because those four, I feel like, are so integrated as a unit. Especially, I feel like Clive, Jill, and Torgal. But Joshua, it's funny. Like he was the one I thought at first. I'm like, I'm gonna hate this kid. Like he
Yeah, I
seemed
thought
like a
that too.
whiny, wimpy
Same,
boy. I'm
same.
like, oh, he's just gonna suck. But then,
Well, and young Joshua is the same voice as Hugo
That's
in
hilarious.
Plague Tale.
Plague Tale,
Oh,
and I
oh,
can't
that's
fucking
funny.
stand Hugo. I can't stand him. So when I first heard him, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna hate this fucking kid.
But yeah, he ends up turning into one of my favorite characters. Like he gets a good redemption. Like he really matures.
Yeah.
And yeah, one of his standout scenes we talked about already with his mom Annabella. Like he really offers her redemption, and she just kills herself instead. But his relationship with Clive, especially, is like really good. Like Clive wants to protect Joshua, but Joshua also is like, no, you don't need to always just be like sacrificing yourself for me, which is a classic JRPG brother move. But yeah, we can just kind of talk about the group as a whole because like this relationship between all four of them is established in the prologue. You see when they're kids, you can see they're all close. You have little Torgal as a puppy, which is the cutest thing ever, of
absolutely
course.
So
adorable is
true.
Jill holding Torgal.
Torgal's the goat.
But yeah, I just like all the relationship with all of them. I mean, Torgal's your companion throughout the whole game. Like he never leaves you down. He's just I actually didn't even discover you could use commands till like over
Yeah,
halfway through the game. Like I just didn't even think about it. Like I just
This
kept using the powers, but I started using it near the end. I'm like, it's so fun to use Torgal.
I
having
was.
Torgal be like an air launcher for enemies
Yes,
is so fun.
yes.
I love it because especially like a lot of people again bitched and complained that oh there's no traditional party in Final in 16, which is true. You know, you don't play as you're the party members, and the game is really centrally focused on Clive. But what it lacks in that, it makes up for the bond you have with the couple you do.
Hmm.
Torgal and Jill and Joshua are very like whenever they're in your party and you can you're doing the commands and stuff like that, they feel like a part of it. Like there's definitely a bond there for me with those characters, and the fact that I'm not shoving, and which again I'm not. I understand, like in a lot of games, it's great to have 20 plus party members and stuff. It's very cool to be able to do that. But you have an intimate relationship with the few you do get here, and the story is very focused on Clive, and rightfully so. But those few that you do, I feel a very strong bond with.
And going back to Joshua a little bit, like the brother dynamic, I thought was excellently done,
Hmm.
especially once they get older, because you know, like when you have that little brother, you have that sort of like really kind of simple. I'm the big brother. I'm gonna attack little brother. I mean, my little brother and I had a more like rivalry, but there still was a little of that, especially when you're looking at the outside world. It's like when anytime the two of us, it was like us doing our thing, and we're trying to go against the world. And it's like, okay, yeah, big brother, little brother. But when he grows up, and then Joshua is like, hey, I'm also trying to solve problems here, and I've been doing my own thing, and that like they're working together, but then occasionally coming into conflict over that, but not like
Hmm.
not malicious conflicts. They just you just see them have different opinions on how things should get done, and then you kind of just see them tussle and like have to work out like, no, what are we actually trying to do here? What's the end goal?
Yeah, I really like.
Yeah, Joshua's an absolute goat. He's definitely, I think, especially when you see him mature and age and a lot of the decisions he makes, you really begin to like him. I was really stupid and didn't realize that was him at first when they're
Oh
kind of
my
teasing
gosh,
that
I
he's
Oh,
still
that's
his
remember that
character.
funny.
now.
Yeah, I was really dumb. Like I didn't realize that was Joshua till way later in the game. So when it finally is revealed to him, I had like a big like, oh, it's Joshua moment. And everyone's like, what the fuck? Like you didn't know this for like hours. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, no, I did love Joshua. And I forget what his assistant. Who was the assistant
Oh
in that
Bella,
yeah,
she
one?
was
Do any of you
great.
guys remember?
yeah.
Yeah, I liked her too. So I like both of them and their dynamic together. I thought it was great. But yeah, it was just like it's very good redemption, especially for a character that you think early on has this horrific death.
Jote is her
Um,
name, by the way,
okay,
Oh,
yeah,
Yota, yeah, yeah.
or
Yeah,
Yote. Yeah.
you have has this horrific death. You really come around and are like, oh man, Joshua's the goat, and he's there with you until the very, very
Mm-hmm.
end, which is awesome.
Yeah, I thought like the flashback Clive and Joshua was such a good establishment of them. Like Clive, like Joshua, understandably is feeling like because he's in a weaker body and he's constantly sick that he doesn't feel like he doesn't feel like he deserves the power of the Phoenix, and believes that because Clive is so strong and like capable that he should have been able to inherit the Phoenix. But Clive's explanation of like, I know you're the Phoenix and I'm working hard to be able to protect you. So like his strength comes from the means to protect his brother, and I just love that as like a sibling dynamic. And I really do like that once they grow older, it's not like they're opposed to each other, because sometimes you have a story where it's like a character you thought was dead comes back and they're like not who you thought they would be, and they're kind of like an
Mm-hmm.
asshole or something. But they did it in a good way where Joshua's still like a really good kid, but he grew up in a completely different environment following that. Like he doesn't have Clive's same like angst, obviously, of being enslaved for so long.
Yeah.
So like his way of approaching things is different, and he had a different support network, and he had just entirely different upbringing. So they're able
Yeah.
to like mature and develop in different ways because of that.
Yeah, they don't
And
turn it into a petty drama. They just show like this is just a conflict that has to like they have to learn to grow together again.
I really want to
Sorry, not
spend
to.
some. Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I
I
was
really
just
want to.
saying
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt, Frog.
no, that was good. That was good.
Yeah.
I really want to spend some time on Clive and Jill's relationship because there are some people
The best.
that don't like it, but I think
Wrong.
that they did a great job, obviously establishing that they like each other from the very beginning. I
Yes,
don't
I
think there
was
was
so
any
appreciative
doubt.
of that.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
also liked like, you have Jill's arc where she has to go back and face like her family and the kingdom that made her like use her powers. Oh, she was Shiva. We haven't really talked about that, but she had to basically kill and do whatever they told her to do because they would threaten to kill her friends or family or whoever, just like random orphans that she would try to protect. And so you saw a lot of the hate that she had to deal, and I thought it was good that Clive kind of helped her deal with that when it was near the middle of the game or even a little early on that they kind of addressed that and went and faced and dealt with that. And then after that, of course, Jill was just loyal to Clive the rest of the time. And I really thought the scene with them by the fire was really well done. Like I wasn't really
Yeah.
expecting it to be in the game,
I
but
was
I was ready to start
Beautiful scene.
laughing at first because I was like, "Oh boy, this is going to be so cringy." But I thought they
no,
did
it
a
wasn't.
great job of handling like
You.
just the mature
I get that. You expect
emotions.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
Yeah,
it's.
in a
I
lesser
mean,
JRPG, that would have been like a really awkward scene
oh yeah,
for sure.
I was gonna say
100%.
JRPGs are known for their corny, like awkward
Oh,
romance.
look. I adore Persona, but if you put that in the Persona game, it was definitely going in a different direction.
Yeah, what did
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys think of their relationship? Because I know there are some mix. Like some people don't really like Jill, but I
I
liked her the whole
Well,
time.
they're
So
fucking
yeah.
wrong.
I
I'm
They
a
are so utterly wrong. Look, I'm just gonna go on a rant for two
okay.
go
seconds
for
here
it.
because I did this. I think we talked about this yesterday on Passive Frog. I fucking hate the idea that you can't have relationships or like a relationship in a game without it turning into some stupid goon thing. And this was why I was upset with Metaphor specifically that they didn't include relationships in that game, because that would have been a really good point, or like a point for them to prove basically that you can make a mature adult relationship with adults in an adult game. And then they didn't include it, and they're like, oh, because we want it to be a serious game. No, fuck you, because Final Fantasy 16 showed you the damn blueprint on how to do it. The relationship between Jill and Clive is fantastic, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. It's introduced very early into the game. You can tell there's like they have this lifetime bond and companionship with each other, but they're just, because of the situations that they've gone through, they've never been able to explore it fully. Then they finally get reunited and the Kindle is reflamed, and all the way to that absolutely amazing fire scene, which is, again, yeah, you when you first see them kind of just chilling there naked, I had the same reaction, Straw. I was like, oh shit, I'm like, this might be a little bit hard to watch, but it's not. It's so beautiful and it's so well done, and it's literally one of my favorite relationships I've seen depicted in a video game ever. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, and the alley up is like finally we got a romantic lead in a in a JRPG or in a video game in general who is not plot critical. I know there's a lot of people who complain about the fact that Jill is not plot critical. It's like, what does she do in the plot? It's like she's Clive's like constant companion and emotional support. Like that's and she's basically just gets to be Clive's girlfriend for the whole thing, and that might seem demeaning to some people. It's like, no, we almost never see that where someone just gets to be the girlfriend and like actively being the girlfriend for the whole thing, and it's not about like her status in the story isn't tied to some MacGuffin, or it's not tied to some, oh, I'm actually the, yeah, she's a nobility, but she's like an outcast nobility. She's literally just enslaved for the fact that she has an icon for most of the thing, and her nobility status is just so meaningless by the middle point of the story when she's resolved her personal stuff, because as far as the rest of the world is concerned, it's like we already dealt with your people, like they're gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she gets to just be Jill and doesn't have to be this big thing, and she and Clive can just have that dynamic for the whole story, and that it's a relationship that's actually about the relationship and not about anything else.
Yeah, one aspect I really appreciate about Clive and Jill's relationship is that one complaint I've seen about them is that after the time skip, you would expect them to be already close. But I think they did it in a really good way where both Clive and Jill have gone through such like like life defining like trauma
Mm-hmm.
before that that it's almost like the feeling that I was getting from Clive and Jill was that they feel like they don't deserve each other in
Mm-hmm.
the beginning
Yeah,
because Jill feels immense guilt at being used as a weapon and like all the people she's had to kill because she was under the control of that kingdom, and so she feels like I'm not worthy of love because of everything I've done. And then Clive feels like equally broken because he was enslaved for so long, and then he was put on a revenge quest, and he realized that he was the one who quote unquote killed Joshua, and
Mm-hmm.
then he just lost all of his purpose for a while. So both of them feel like, even though they're connected again, they feel like we're both not in a position where we could do anything. Like,
yeah.
even if we feel these things towards each other, we're both not who we should be right now.
Not to mention
So
the fact that they have those subtle signs of, yes, they are kind of intimate. Like Jill's hanging out in Clive's room at the hideout.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're having wine together. Everyone reacts like, oh, you guys are having some time
Like,
together,
oh,
right?
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
like
they're yeah, so it's a good conflict of them being obviously close, and like the connection that they felt as kids never went away, and it's carrying over into the real life, but they also have gone through so much in between that time that
and
they
they have
can't just
more to go
immediately jump
through.
in. It's like, hey, we're gonna be dating now. Like, you just woke up, let's date. Like, they
Yeah,
have their own things to go through right now, and it was
Eternite.
really fitting that like even after Jill went through her thing with the kingdom, like there was still like so much turmoil because Sid had just died, and Clive was so focused on his mission that he was still
Mm-hmm.
mission oriented overall. So like even if they were still closer, it wasn't like a we're gonna go on a comfy date all the time because
yeah,
uh, Clive took up the mantle of Sid, so he has a lot of important responsibilities. But I
yeah,
think the most important aspect of their relationship was just that they were both there for each other as support, which I feel like is the most important part of a relationship because Jill was there for Clive when he was going through his turmoil about being the one who killed Joshua and turned him to be freed back when the back when Joshua was supposedly killed. So she was there as a support for him, being like, I I'll be with you no matter what happens. I'll make sure that you don't fall down that path again. And then it was a really like just a nice adult moment where Jill says, "You, I helped you through your thing, but I still have a lot of stuff going on." And then Clive, being the Giga Chad he is, being like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to support you in the same way you supported me."
yeah,
So like, you could tell that they already deeply cared for each other. It was just a matter of when they felt like they can be comfortable, like with themselves, in order to like be close.
Facts. Final Fantasy has a lot of very, very good, strong woman characters throughout the games, Jill is definitely a top 5 for me. I love her. I think she's great. I do not understand the complaints about her. There's a lot of complaints about this game that I think are silly. That is probably this is one of the top ones for me. Like just say you don't understand how a fucking adult relationship works in a video game. Like you just people just expect to go in and shoot spaceships like in fucking Galaga. Anything more complex than that, and they're just lost.
They just like the Mass Effect relationship where it's like, hey, we're ready to do a
You
suicide mission. You want to bang?
report to the cabin. We'll bang, okay? And look, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fun too. I like that as well. It's good times. But when you're presented with something more complex, right? Not to invoke The Last of Us 2, but it's the same shit with that fucking game. When you presented with something a little bit more complex that you need to think about, it fucking throws people for a loop. They don't understand how to react.
I know people aren't going to like hearing this either, but another game I feel like has done really well on like since Mass Effect, which I feel like Mass Effect does do a great job of developing its characters, but Dragon Age Veilguard, they put such a big focus on your companions and doing many like loyalty type missions with them. And I know that's a popular game to hate, but I also think they do a great job letting you get to know the characters and expanding on that. And I always love when games do that.
So you're just trying to insult Connor right to his
Pretty
face.
much.
Okay.
Yeah, I also just really want to comment on what Connor was saying about Jill being defined by the plot or not being defined by the plot. I just find that really refreshing because, I think a lot of people imagine if your character is a strong female character, they're constantly in battle, they're constantly like fighting for the main plot, they're constantly like just being strong girl bosses. But it's really satisfying that Jill is very strong. She is very capable, but she's also not. So she isn't like the main like I don't know like she doesn't have as much role in the plot, but that's also okay
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my favorite female characters, they're not necessarily the strongest like physical fighters, but they provide such a strong like emotional support and like are deeply interesting in their own way. Where like even if they don't do as much for the main story, like I'm still deeply invested in them because of who they are as a character. So I appreciated that. Like, would I have liked Jill to be more active in the plot? Probably, but I also just really appreciate Jill who she is and her character, irregardless of the plot. Because I think a good character like can be held up by their like lack of involvement of the plot. Because if you put this character in a situation that wasn't the plot, would you still care about them?
Mm-hmm.
And this was the
Yes.
kind of
Yeah,
character.
I would.
This game is full of characters where I could see them in any setting, and I probably would be connected to them because of how well fleshed out they are.
Agreed, which is impressive to me because again, like overwhelmingly, the most important character in this game is Clive. Like everything is through Clive.
Mm-hmm.
Clive is basically there at the start. He's there at the end. He's the only character you ever control in the game directly. He is the most important character, and so the fact that you can get so many other these side characters that you never control that might not be plot relevant at different points at large stretches of the game, if at all, and you still care about them is a testament to I think just how well written and made this game really
Yeah.
is.
And it also goes to show like the game's story and themes aren't just based on these we're doing this thing and then we're doing this thing. It's not just plot focused storytelling. It is about the world and the characters and what all these things will mean for them, right? In their lives, not just in what do they have to do next.
I will say too, a lot of people have tons of disagreements about this game, but the one thing I don't think anyone disagrees on, and if you do, I don't really even know what to say to you, but Torgal is the GOAT, and I don't think there's really
Such
any
a good boy.
questions, and there's really nothing more to even say. I know Frog, you touched on how good his side quest is, which I did really love that one, but Torgal is just always there for you. He's your party member that's with you 90% of the time, and yeah, he's I always loved having Torgal, and he's one of the best dogs in video games, I feel like. So I don't have much more to say than that about
Yeah,
him.
you have to have a very
If you're
cold.
negative about Torgal, just actually kill
Yeah, you
yourself.
have to have a very
Like,
cold heart in order
just do it.
to like see a dog. He's a big boy. You give him pets. He joins you. He launches enemies into the air. He sets up your air combos,
Heck yeah.
and then he also has a good backstory about his entire like species. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, how can you not like that? And I don't know, more dogs need to be able to air combo. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And that moment at the end, just before uh, Clive and Joshua and Dion go to fight the big bad, and they're doing the send off, and Torval has to stay behind with
Ugh.
Jill. Like, oh my gosh, and mid of that moment was just so good.
Yeah. Torgal's howl at the very end, like rang through my entire body. I was like, oh, I'm gonna die.
Is there any other characters that you guys want to talk about? I think I tried to hit most of the major ones. I know there's other probably side ones, but in interest of time, those pretty
Yeah,
much are the major ones I wanted to
I feel
focus
like that's
on.
all we could cover today. We haven't talked
Yeah,
anything
no
about the
doubt.
gameplay.
Well, it's fine. You just hit X. There's nothing else to do, so there's no gameplay.
Yeah, it's funny because getting into the gameplay. So I didn't know anything about like the powers or anything. So just like starting out, I'm like, oh, this is okay. Like I don't hate it. Like just the basic combos and combat before you get any of the powers. But yeah, once the powers came in, I really thought it added a unique flair. Now I know people are going to be like, "Well, it's too easy." Yeah, there. I mean, I really wasn't challenged on too many fights. Well, unless you break your R1 button, I guess if you
Yeah,
do that, that can help increase the challenge. But I also just I just plain had fun playing the game. I never got bored. And then especially with all the different powers you inherit, like I was struggling to decide which powers do I want, because I really like the Titan because the counter ability is so cool. The the
yeah.
the lightning, I can't remember what his name is now. It's
Ramu,
Sid's power,
Odin,
but
not Odin. Um,
not
Ramu,
Odin. It's the lightning, the
Brock
old
said it.
guy. Oh, you did? What was it?
Ramu.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, I liked his the different the lock on thing. It was fun being Bahamut when you could dodge around and get your Giga
Yes.
Flare ready to shoot off. So yeah, I just really liked the combat, and I pretty much and the boss fights were really. We'll get into the boss fights even a little later. But what do you guys just think of the basic combat?
I think it was just very satisfying. Like, was it the deepest combat system I've played? Probably not, but
No.
it has a good amount of flashiness, but also just good game feel to make it engaging the whole way through. And they do a good job of distributing powers, so you're always able to experiment with something
Yeah.
new, like getting a new icon and trying out their kit and seeing how it combines with your already set up moveset. Like once I found out Ramu's lightning ball that you can hold in place and then you could chain it
Mm-hmm.
together with Phoenix's flare. So then you're just constantly doing you're just doing constant damage to build up your stagger, and it's just there's a lot of experimentation you could do with it, and then combining it with these more all out attacks with something like Bahamut or Odin is just really satisfying. But
Yeah.
I it's just a kind of game where even if I only had the standard square attacks in a dodge and stuff, I would still probably still enjoy that combat because it just feels really good, especially when you get the air step, so you can step up on an
Mm-hmm.
enemy and then launch them up and then you slam them down. It's just very fun. I like it.
Yeah. I think people need there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it's not as good, like this isn't nearly as good as Devil May Cry 5. And it's like, yes, but Devil May Cry 5 is not 60 hours long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's I don't know how many people, like I started when we were talking about our history of Final Fantasy. I didn't beat any of the Final Fantasy games right when I was a kid. You know why? Because you get to a boss and it's like there's a
Hard.
sudden difficulty spike and you just get stuck, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
could tell as a game designer that at some point, and it was probably midway through development, where they were just like, "Oh, we can't make this Devil May Cry 5. It just does not fit our audience to make it that same level of demand on player skill." So and you see that with how the items were handled, and they really simplified. There's just there's not really any need to do much gear management or things like that. They're just like, now cut all that cruft because we want to keep the story going. Like people are already complaining about a pacing problem. Can you imagine if there's you get done with a big boss fight and you're spending the next 5 hours trying
Grinding.
to
Yeah.
grinding and getting your build put together? And it's like, oh, I got the orange sword now. It's like, no, you just get the all right, next chapter, here's a new sword, and keep going. And they made it so the combat always goes forward. Like nothing will stop, like unless you're just absolutely abysmal at the game. you will make progress on the fights. And the difference between skilled and not skilled is how fast and how flashy it is. Like Alex and I were getting just ridiculous damage combos off with our abilities.
Mhm.
We would hit the stagger and we're hitting like 2 million damage, right?
Same.
Like figuring out how to do the Bahamut dodge. A lot of people wrote
Mm-hmm.
off the Giga Flare or whatever it was as garbage because
That's
you
so
had to sit
good.
there and wait for it to
Mm-hmm.
charge until you realize that you can, like, an enemy will do a big area of effect attack with multi-hit and you can just spam R1 and get max charge
Yeah.
instantly, and then suddenly it's a combo tool. And, like, there's so much fun you can have with this sandbox of abilities, and it never becomes a stopping point whether or not you figure that out.
Yeah, it's really annoying to me because I feel like it, I don't want to blame like a whole group of gamers, but I'm going to Souls Chuds specifically. I feel like if something's not hard enough now, that they just write it off. But like again, if I'm gonna throw back a reference I just fucking made with Galaga and shooting spaceships, that's kind of what this fucking combat is. You're building high scores, you're building points. Yes, it's not particularly difficult. It's not going to make you slam your controller in rage and have to try it 20 times. But if you engage with the systems, you mix the power abilities, and you try setting like, oh, how high can I go? What can my score be? There's plenty of depth to that combat
Which is
system. And again, just because it wasn't super difficult, people just wrote it off. They're like, "Oh, I don't. This is stupid. You're just pushing one button," and that's not fucking true. If you stood there and pushed one button the entire game, you would not beat it.
which
So
is
you're wrong.
hilariously connected to the origins of the series. Like in Final Fantasy One, what it's infamous for is that really it was not a complex combat system
Mm-hmm.
at all. You basically just attacked and healed, right? And you grinded to get past the fact that this boss is really hard to attack and heal. But there was a lot of, like, I remember seeing that there's a bunch of challenge modes that people would put on themselves with Final Fantasy One. Can I beat it with all, just rogues? Can I beat it with
Yeah. All white
just white
mages.
mages? Can I beat it with one white mage? Right? And it's like that kind of really does hit to the origins of what the series is. It was never about deeply tactical combat.
It does unlock like a harder mode, right? When you beat the
Yeah,
game. Okay. And also, if you want the game to be harder, just use an Elite Pro controller and
for
make
the
your
broken
R1
R1
button
button.
break. And then guess what? It's hard to do those Bahamut dodges because I'm slamming on the button and not doing anything.
uh,
Yeah, let's talk about the boss fights too, because I feel like obviously on a spectacle level, they're just mind blow you basically. Like it's just amazing. Like you see the cinematography that they put into these, and just the music, like Addy mentioned earlier, is just pounding as you're playing as Ifrit or the Phoenix or any of those. Like I know everybody loves the Bahamut one, which is probably the best fight in the game. But I also enjoyed when you're the Phoenix fighting Ifrit and the Titan fight as well. I feel like all those are like really great. And I just think that's what pushed the game over the top for me. Those were the boss fights that I dreamed of as like a kid. Like in the JRPGs, like, they always like to push their boss fights. That's like what they go by, like this challenging or big spectacle. But obviously back then, like the cinematography and the graphics were not really what you picture in your head. Where I feel like these fights are just what you picture. Like if you think of an epic giant anime type boss fight, this is what you want. So
pretty much.
All right, first of all, die.
yeah.
But beyond that, I I do think that definitely like somewhere like in making of this game and development of this game, they kind of just sat at the table. Were like, okay, let's start with the boss fights. And I'm not sure that's necessarily like then that's definitely not a negative because these are certainly peak boss fights and some of the best I've certainly experienced in a video game. And it kind of became a running gag where like I was playing this game a little bit slower than a lot of people. I was really, really sick while trying to play this game. And this game was so good. Like I was still putting in a disgusting amount of time playing it, but it was hard because I was so sick trying to get
Hmm.
through it. And I was like a little bit behind everyone, and I'm like, oh my god, this fight's so peak, and everyone's like, oh, just wait, it gets more peak. I'm like, no, this is ridiculous. You cannot get more peak than this. And then the Titan fight happens. I'm like, oh my god, this is like the best boss fight ever. And everyone's like, just wait. And I'm like, no, there's nothing that could possibly be more peak than this. Then Dion happens, which in my opinion is the peak, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like this game just keeps one upping itself with these incredible boss fights, the spectacle of them, the fact that somehow my PS5 didn't explode
Yes.
while trying to play them is a
Yeah.
miracle. But yeah, like it's just absolutely bar none some of the most memorable boss fights I've ever had in video games. And it's the type of thing where you could just go back and experience those again, and I feel like they would be just as fun. Like
Mhm.
it's so
Because they're
well
amazing audio visual experiences first, right? And they're kind of hard to talk about other than you need to experience this because
Right.
they're like, what is there to say is like you have to see the thing and you have to hear the thing. Like it's just awesome what someone invented and made into a series of images that you can interact with. And like I like the Odin fight too. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
get the same kind of high as the Bahamut fight, but it gets that really somber. Like you go and they're like, yeah, everything's dead now. So what are you fighting for? It's like, oh, it's like this is like fighting depression.
Yeah, the fights really emphasize like a different kind of like design philosophy behind boss fights, because I think when people think about boss fights now, they think about like FromSoft with like Elden Ring or Sekiro or something, where it's about like this like dance and it's like a big challenge. But they
Yeah,
Final Fantasy 16 is very much more about like the presentation and the spectacle of it. Like, of course, you're still playing the fights, and you're like, you have to like learn their moves, and you have to find out when to attack and how to attack. But it's less about like an unrelenting challenge and more like we know what we're cooking is going to be like mind blowing for you, so I'm going to like facilitate you being able to experience this as smoothly as possible. Like
yeah,
it feels like the bosses don't really present like a roadblock where you're going to like
exactly.
have to like retry anything necessarily. Like
Yeah,
they're very much made so you can experience this in one go. You feel like the full vision of like the audio, the visuals, the cinematography, and like the gameplay for it, and they just want you to experience that in its
the
entirety.
interaction.
Yeah, they don't want to. They don't
Yep.
want to like take it away from you. It's kind of like the difference between like a FromSoft game and like God of War, where
Yeah,
like a God of War fight, like eventually like the scales get so big, and like what you're actually seeing is more impressive than the actual like combat mechanics. But what they're showing you is so impressive in Final Fantasy 16 that they understand deeply that it's like I want people to just experience what I thought in my head and just have fun with that, because it holds up
exactly.
on its own, like in its own way like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, go ahead.
How cool is it to have Joshua and Clive, like Ifrit and Phoenix combined to fight Bahamut, or
And they go to
you just
space.
have those two plus Bahamut fighting Ultima. I mean, these are just like childhood dreams, like of these giant summons that you saw all these years, like interacting with each other, doing these huge attacks that. And I know people complain, well, it's too much on rails, it's too scripted, but it's like, well, that's what makes it so cool because they know that you're gonna see this moment and your jaw's gonna drop. You need to soak it in.
Yeah, but there's still just a little bit of interactivity really does go a long way, and
Mm-hmm.
especially like you know some people, especially a lot of guys, they need that feeling that I'm involved in this thing happening, even if you're not in full control, right? It's like you're helping your dad fix a car and you're
Mm-hmm.
just turning a wrench a few times, and he did all the thinking, but it's still fun to turn the wrench. It makes you feel like
Mm-hmm.
you're connected to this process, right?
and again, I gotta just say the music
Oh
during these
yeah.
boss
Yeah.
fights are just beyond epic and
Yes.
incredible. They're
Yes.
and like you said, like you guys have said, audio visual spectacle for sure, but just god, the music just does such a good job at pumping you up in these fights and just pushing what is already hype just to different hype levels.
Right.
It's
And
insane.
to go back to the FromSoft comparison again, real quick, as the FromSoft chud of this conversation, we had just gotten Elden Ring. Like, an Elden Ring has over 100 bosses to the point where you're sick of it because they're trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel, and they now some of us would argue that they still all work, but you can tell that they're reaching the limits. And then what happens this year? We get Shadow of the Erd Tree, and we see what that there is a limit before people start going, okay, you know what? Maybe I don't need it to just get harder and harder. Where even the most extreme FromSoft fans were going, that might have been just a little too ridiculous. I am not enjoying this, which is still its own, like, it has its own value. I think Shadow of Erdtree is great and how ridiculously hard it is, and that it finally got people to go, it finally brought the pain back to the FromSoft experience, which was fun for me to see as someone who always struggled to finish those games before. But yeah, it's like that really just kind of justifies more and more Final Fantasies 16's decision of like the combat difficulty is never going to be a stopping point. Like, this is just about being engaged.
Yeah, and to compare it to like other Final Fantasy games, most likely like when you think about a Final Fantasy boss, you never really think about like the combat mechanics. You think about like the spectacle of it, the music,
Yes.
and then what follows immediately before and after it, like from a narrative level. Like the boss fight is is like a necessary aspect in order to get to a specific story event or like to present a new boss track or
Yeah.
things like that. It was never about like the outright challenge of it and like or like from a gameplay level. So it's actually kind of probably more traditional in that sense where it's about experiencing like the vision of the story that they want to present, and Final Fantasy 16 just gives the opportunity to like make that in between section like as engaging as the story stuff that would happen after a boss fight.
Yeah. Although now we do have Final Fantasy Rebirth, which is showing like, hey, there's this happy middle point too that exists. That's awesome too. But we got a Final Fantasy VII remake for all that.
All right, so I know Addi kind of wanted to do this at the end. We'll do our final thoughts then, but before that, Addi thought that it'd be fun to rank the different icon abilities as far as how much we liked them or how much we used them. So Addi, if you want to go first, and then we can kind of just follow and see what our rankings are.
Yeah, for sure. I thought this would just be kind of a fun little thing to do and just kind of throw in there. I did try to experiment with all of them and kind of play around with a lot of different powers. To be honest with you, I thought most of them were pretty fun. In fact, the one I have at the very bottom, unfortunately, is Shiva.
Mm.
I really just didn't find any of her abilities super fun to use or that good. I did try them a little bit, but that was the only one that I was like, don't really love them. But every other one had like a lot of utility to me, and there was stuff that I really liked in the kit. And I forget exactly how it works, but I know later on you can basically master a thing, and then you can use it in
Oh yeah,
different
Yes.
yep,
sets. Like you can
I've
kind of
used
move
that
it,
like
which was
crazy.
really useful
me too.
to kind of play around with. But yeah, so kind of in order, what I ended up doing was I put Shiva in last, I put Ifrits in seventh, I put Bahamut's in sixth, Titans in fifth, Garuda's in fourth, Phoenix is in third, Odin's in second, and Ramu's actually in first. I really, really fucked with the lightning abilities. Like one of my favorite things to do was that lightning rod, and then just combine that with other things. That cooked, man. That did so much damage. I was so fun to use. And then with Odin, I love building up
Me
that meter. I
too.
forget what it was
Oh
called.
yeah.
It's like
But then
Sengetsu or
Sengetsu or
something.
yeah, and once you get to level 4, that shit just cut, man. Like, you could just go around and just
It was
absolutely
so
melt
fun.
things. And you could also combine that with the lightning rod too
Mhm.
and get even more power out of it. So those two things together just worked so great for me.
I'm still making my list if anybody else wants to go next.
I'm kind of doing
I
the
c-
same thing, but I'll improvise. Probably my least favorite was probably Bahamut, not because I don't think he was very.
Ooh,
I honestly didn't know about Connor's like dodge,
my little
like
trick.
charging.
me
That
too.
probably would change my list a lot. Then I would probably give it to Shiva. I really like Shiva's dodge. That's probably my favorite
That
part of
is
it.
good.
Just it's very like floaty and like elegant, but in terms of the actual practicality, it wasn't something I used as much. Then probably I would give it to Odin, not because I think Odin's really cool. It came in so late that I was already kind of like established in what my moveset was. and I get kind of stubborn where like once I find the thing that sticks with me, I don't experiment as much.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just more my fault. Then I would probably give it to uh Ramu. I think the lightning rod is like super OP, and then the moment that they allowed you to, I kept Ramu there just for the lightning rod because
Yep.
it's just such an important like thing for DPS that it was important. But I'm not normally a big like lightning or like that moveset didn't really click with me as much. Then I would give it to Garuda because I think Garuda is like the most fun. And I love like the gripping and like the grappling and stuff. And a lot of the moves were pretty fun, but especially like the rapid fire claw move, that was really good for
Mm-hmm.
like building up the stagger percentage, but it wasn't really like a good like offensive move. Like it didn't really have a lot of Garuda's moves don't have a lot of like impact in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like
Yeah,
overall damage.
good
And
for
then
mobility and movement, but yeah.
Yep.
yeah, then probably Phoenix because I think Phoenix is like a nice tried and true like you know what you're getting with Phoenix and nothing about that moveset really like deters me. It's just a pretty it's probably the most standard of the moves of what you would imagine this game's combat to be. And then I probably like Titan the most. I just really like
Me
the
too.
I love the it's kind of like an active reload but for punches. And I thought that was like a really fun mechanic of like normally you just get the big punchy guy, but they actually gamified his moveset in a really fun way where you have to time out all of his attacks in a fun way and once you land like a really solid punch, it just feels really satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I think my favorite is Bahamut. Like the way you could, none of his moves make sense at first, like as direct attacks, but once you start realizing how many of them are like fire and forget, or like you have little tricks to build them up, the things you could do with Bahamut just made you feel. Oh, plus the ultimate, just the
Mm-hmm.
death
So
lasers.
good.
It's like, okay, you throw out a couple of the other icons' abilities to like get your mainstay, but then like you weaving Bahamut's abilities in between all his other stuff to like make sure that there's a bunch of missiles raining from hell. There's make sure that I think it was like a some it was some other like orb or something you
Yeah,
could
it's like a
summon.
little orb that bounces or something.
Yeah, or like the fire breath, which I didn't use the fire breath as much, but yeah, it's just like this constant dance of use some ability, then go into dodgy mode, get the thing up, and then once everything's going on, you got the stagger, and you're pounding on them with other abilities, other ultimates for half the stagger, and then it hits that 50% time left, and you just go into the laser and just
Mm-hmm.
eviscerate them with that maximum multiplier.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just it's I always loved hitting the laser. It's just like, yeah, you're dead. The second I'd put Odin because it's just so cool and also does a ton of damage. Three I think I'd put Titan. Titan just had a really dynamic like brawling
Mm-hmm.
combo set that works really well for the game. Fourth I'd put is Ifrit because for one thing and one reason alone, which was the fire dash. That was all I needed. That thing just was so silly for cleaning up little mobs.
It's so
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah. And then Garuda, I actually just almost all of my combos until late in the game were all based around using Garuda's abilities to just maintain air combos and things like that. So I got so much use out of that. And then Phoenix has the the teleport, which is
Yeah.
I don't remember if you could unequip that, but I never did. Um, and then Shiva, I used one of her abilities for a while, but mostly I was kind of like in the state where it's like, okay, I've already like the defensive utility I'm getting out of this, I've already like solved for
Mm-hmm.
myself with Bahamut, and then yeah, I actually almost never used Ramo.
That's funny because I feel like he's one of the most popular ones, especially his like ultimate spear attack.
I think I did use that a couple of times, but it just wasn't as satisfying to me, especially when I got the kill laser.
Yeah, so for me, Shiva's my least favorite too. Even though I did use like the ice ball that would like suck people in
Yep,
for a while,
that's the one.
and then Ifrit I used a bit. Garda was good for like the airborne stuff. Phoenix I did like that was the hardest one for me to get rid of because I love teleporting like to around the field. Like it just felt so good. So that one I was just like I don't really want to get rid of this. And then Rama was obviously good with that ultimate and just the lightning abilities. Bahamut was my number 3, just the Giga Flare, and that laser was just so OP. But it cost so much to upgrade that to max.
Still did it.
And then, yeah, Odin, I just love charging the Zangetsu. I love the charging abilities. I just felt like that was so cool. And then, yeah, Titan was also my number 1 just because I loved charging up all his attacks. Like that punch felt so good to do. And then I love the counter guard ability. Like you could, like if you get an enemy to attack you, you guard it, and then you had to hit buttons to like do a 3-hit punch, which just felt
Oh
so
yeah.
satisfying. So yeah, I really liked all of them. I feel bad putting Shiva even at the bottom because I did use it for a while and I liked it, but it definitely was my least favorite.
Can we just give a shout out how to each one of these ability sets requires you to like hit different buttons? Like
Mm-hmm.
Addi was joking earlier. It's like, oh, just hit X to win. But it's like if you're actually using the ability sets, you're using the entire controller of buttons
I know,
sometimes.
especially R1.
Yes.
Yes, you are using the R1 button a lot, unfortunately.
All right. I guess we're getting near the end here. Is there any closing thoughts? Obviously, I can just tell from our conversation we all love this game, and
Well, there's one thing I got to ask everyone here because I'd be remiss if I don't bring up the elephant in the room. What do you guys think of the ending? I really want to hear what you guys think. Specifically, do y'all think Clive survived? Like, what do you think is kind of going on with that ending? I think it's very purposely ambiguous a little bit, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
I loved it. I thought it was a great ending.
what
Yeah,
what
but
did you think happened?
no, it's obviously a great ending. But what do you think? I
Yeah,
want to know
yeah,
what you think
I was
specifically.
in there. I think honestly that Clive survives. I think he just loses an arm and move I think you're actually seeing a few some Rosfield descendants there in that post credit scene with the book.
That's funny because that's exactly what I thought too when it first ended, and I got like crucified about thinking that. So
That's interesting because I found like it was really kind of toxic actually. If you went on, which it's Reddit, it's always
Yeah,
fucking toxic.
most evergreen
But if you
statement of
went
the
on the
year,
Final Fantasy,
century.
yeah, if you went on the Final Fantasy Reddit afterwards and tried to suggest that Clive had actually died, I found it was the opposite. That people would like rip you a new one, like you're a fucking moron. I think for my again, and I think you can interpret it however you want, but I like the fact that Clive kind of sacrificed everything. I don't think he saves Joshua
No, I
either.
think
Like I think
Joshua's dead.
basically that little I think that act at the end is basically him just trying to make him a little more whole and
Yeah,
presentable and just kind of give him a piece of his heart back. But I don't think he can save the Phoenix himself even. I do think it's possible that he survives, but I don't think it's likely. But I think it's a very bittersweet ending. I think Clive certainly could survive it, but I don't think he does. I think realistically, what we're getting with that book at the end is somebody carrying on the name of Joshua. Specifically, it could just be the guy. I forget that old guy's name who's in the fucking writing the basically talking about the book. He could have finished it for either of them. So I think it's a very interesting ending though, and it's very ambiguous in kind of how they
Yeah,
set it up. I
it's
love
been
it
a
though.
while since I beat the game, so some stuff is coming to me. Some stuff is still probably lost. But what I thought, yeah, I definitely agree with you about like I think Joshua's name on the book was a red herring because as this game has proven that like an important aspect to these characters is carrying on like a legacy. So similar to how Clive carried on Sid's legacy, either Clive or someone nondescript could have carried on Joshua's legacy to like present a present him in the best light to make sure that his like reputation is as good as it is. I was leaning towards Clive not living initially when I beat it. But at the same time, if Clive was the one who wrote the book, it would feel fitting based on how he takes up everything on his shoulders. So I'm kind of conflicted on that still. But I was still leaning towards him dying initially, just because of felt like it would have been like a worthy sacrifice where he sacrifices himself to make the world a better place, and like Metia, this like the red star going out with that seemed symbolic of like a passing of the torch in a way. But I either way, if there's ever like a canon like this is objectively what happened solution, I don't think I would be upset with either way, honestly.
Yeah. I can also see it as both brothers died and say like I don't know, because whoever wrote the book had to know like all little details,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
presumably. Like maybe the writers forget
Well, keep
that
in
little.
mind, he was keeping track of it the entire game, right? Like he was writing everything down and keeping logs of it and notes of it.
Yeah.
So
So you had
because he did want to write that book, so the logs existed. It would just be somebody
like
close to them would get those.
Yeah.
like
Well,
Jill could have written it, and
Jill could
Yeah,
probably get
Jill.
yeah. But
yeah,
also with
they could.
Joshua, Clive healing Joshua was very much. I felt that it was just like I'm not gonna see my brother look like this kind of thing, where
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
he
sure.
just has so much love and reverence for his brother that he wouldn't allow his body to be desecrated in that way.
Yeah, that's how I looked at that too.
But yeah, sorry, I just really
Yeah, no,
wanted to hear
no,
your
that was
guys'
good. I
thoughts on
forgot
that.
about that even.
But yeah, no. Final thoughts. I think this game was incredible. It wormed its way right into my top 5 of all time, and it's staying there. It's not going anywhere. So I think I'm past the recency bias point of that now. It's still there. It will still be there for the foreseeable future. It's an experience I can't wait to replay one day. I was actually, shout out Colby, who also loves this game. He gifted me a copy of 16 on PC so
Ooh.
we have it in the Canadian Steam Family Share library
Nice.
now. And yeah, I played a little bit of it just to try it on the laptop and get that free Torgal Discord picture. And it looked great on PC. It was running fantastic. So I can't wait to go back and do a replay on there one day. Very excited to do that. So yeah, I loved it though. I think it's just an incredible game.
Frog, Connor, any closing thoughts?
I feel like my thoughts have been heard.
Yeah, I am in a similar boat. I just genuinely love this game, and it's a game that I still constantly think about in terms of its narrative and its especially its spectacle and its music and everything. So hopefully time is kind to this game. I feel like it will be. Like I feel like a lot of people are contrarian during a game's initial release, and then it needs like a little bit of time to settle, and then they realize, oh yeah, this game actually like is the best shit of all time. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
am very much looking forward to whatever this specific team does next. I hope they carry on the same like mature like presentation and emphasis on like well written character and storytelling. So I just really love this game, and I'm very excited to see what they do next.
Yeah, like I know Final Fantasy is always different from game to game. It's you never know what you're going to get, and I don't expect 17 to be anything like 16, and that's fine. But I do hope Yoshi P goes back to the single player well sometimes because I'm never going to do Final Fantasy 14. Let's be real. So I hope he goes back and makes another single player game, even if it's not Final Fantasy, another Final Fantasy game. Just does something
mhm.
because I love what that team accomplished, and I would love for them to do something else.
Yeah, I guess I'm the one who played this the most recent because I had to wait for it to come to PC. But I'm even talking about it like made me just think of how much I really did love this game. Like, might even be higher than I thought it originally was. But it's just such a great experience and one I did not expect it to like. I did not expect to like it as much as I did. But I'm sure everyone listening completely agrees with everything we say. But if you don't, I will send you Addi's personal email and address so you can specifically send him your kind words.
I think we did a very good job over these past 2 hours objectively proving why this game is great. So we've
Correct.
laid the case that if anyone disagrees with it, they're just objectively wrong. So
Correct.
Fair. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me. I know you can find Addi and Frog Passive Pixels. I think they have a new episode. Well, this episode's going to post way later than the one that you just recorded, but I think you guys.
Well, ours isn't going to post till
Okay.
December, so I don't know when you plan on posting this, but yeah, it's a bit away still, but yeah.
And then Connor, it was good to have you back. Hopefully, we can find you, get you out of
Well,
retirement at different points, and get you on here again.
yeah. And until then, you can find me at www.arscorvi.com. That's ARSCORVI.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining me, and thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, sayonara, Mina-san.
See ya.
Bye bye.